Have no manager. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and call to order the Town of Fraser special meeting to order on November 30th at 6 p.m. Can I please have a roll call?
Katie Fisher,
Louis Gregory.
Eileen Waldo,
Ryan Cirkvanek.
Quinn.
Katie Souls.
Philip Vandernale. Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now open forum. So this is where the public can address the town board on topics not related to what's on the agenda tonight. So if anybody in the public would like to address the board, and we'll start here in the town. So if anybody here would like to address the town, raise your hand. Okay, anybody online, you can digitally raise your hand. You get 3 minutes. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Can you tell if their hands would be raised from back of you?
There's no hands raised.
Okay. So no comments from the public, and we are now at our Victoria Village developer interviews. So we have 4 interviews tonight. The process will be a 15-minute presentation by each developer, and then up to 30 minutes of questions and answers from the town board. The questions will all be the same for each of the developers, and the stated questions will be the same, but there might be axillary questions from the town board might ask. So want to thank all of them for coming, and the public for joining us as well. So this is pretty exciting because this is going to happen on our Victoria Village property, which is going to be a workforce portable, attainable, whatever you want to call it, housing development in the town of Fraser, and we're pretty excited about this. First up is WC Johnson, and they have a representative here in the town. So if you can come up and let us know who you are, and then go ahead into your presentation. And welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to present on the Victoria Village project. We're super excited about the opportunity and really proud of my hometown for making the investment in Victoria Village and pursuing workforce housing. We need it so badly here, and you all know that, and I know that. So just to start with introductions, my name is Charlie Johnson. I am the founder of WC Johnson LLC, and also represent the ownership group for Cooper Creek Square, for Winter Park Station, and then our family owns the development property for the Cooper Creek Village development project in Winter Park. It's now all officially in Winter Park. We are done with the entitlement process for Cooper Creek Village, and this proposal has nothing to do with the entitlements that we have for that project. This is totally separate, and it's just something as a developer and having great relationships, which I'll introduce here in a minute, think that we can really help solve the workforce housing problem here in the Valley. So I'll pass it on to Scott Kwasinski with Horizon Development Group.
Hello, I'm Scott Kwasinski with Horizon. Horizon is a company that's based out of Madison, Wisconsin. Super happy to be here tonight. Thank you all for the opportunity. Our company works mostly in multifamily development, construction, and property management, and we have 38 years of experience in the field. Joe?
Thanks, Scott. My name is Joe Lee with JLA Architects. We have an office in Denver, and we have worked quite a bit with Horizon over the years. I think in the last 10 years, we've probably worked on 7 projects with them, worked with either affordable housing or workforce housing. In those last 10 years, we've probably also been the design and architect of record for about 1,800 units of LIHTC affordable housing project. So really excited to be on this team and looking forward to working in Fraser.
BJ?
It's BJ Hibble with Griffiths Blessing. We really appreciate this opportunity. Griffiths Blessing's been around since 1985. We're headquartered in Colorado Springs with offices in Denver. We currently manage around 12,000 units, 80 properties along the Front Range, including mountain properties, Montrose, Grand Junction, Glenwood Springs, and we have clients opening properties in Durango, Idaho Springs, and Estes Park. We have about 300 employees. We are very familiar today. We manage 2 Chaffa properties. We have 1 LIHTC property that is a 55 plus, but historically we've managed a lot. We have a group that specializes with Chaffa and LIHTC. Thank you.
And the founder of Griffiths Blessing is a part-time resident of Grant County as well.
Yes.
Thanks, BJ, Joe, and Scott. So just jumping into the town questions here. The first question, I'm not going to read it. You guys have it in front of you, but our response to how we're going to ensure this project is successful is first and foremost, it's public outreach. It's figuring out what exactly the community wants, reaching out, meeting with the town first and understanding more of the town's goals. We did our best in our application to address what the town was asking for in the RFQ, but I think there's a whole lot more conversation that needs to happen to really dial in the program and the design of the project. So public outreach with the town, with the community, with the neighbors, with the business owners, everybody who's feeling this issue. And we just got through with a big public outreach project in Winter Park. I encourage you to reach out to the town council in Winter Park and ask them how our public outreach for our project went compared to other master plan developments in Winter Park. And then next is the team experience and the trust that the team has in each other. As I mentioned, the founder of Griffiths Blessing is a part-time resident. He's our neighbor on Grand Lake, and we've known him for many years and has a tremendous track record, and Griffiths Blessing has won all kinds of awards throughout the years. Horizon Development Group, we've been working with Horizon for 15 years now. My personal relationship with Horizon has been 15 years with several successful projects, and Horizon has been at this for 38 years with thousands of workforce housing units developed. And JLA, as Joe mentioned, has worked with Horizon on 10 or so projects. Next up is the capital stack. These projects are hard to finance. The capital stack can have tons and tons of layers to make these things go. So we have tons of experience with putting the capital stack together. We have a super deep investor group that would be interested in investing in this project. I've already started conversations with the Fraser River Valley Housing Partnership. I have relationships with members of the board. Also met with the Grand Foundation. I'm pursuing another workforce housing project in Grand County and have been communicating with the Grand Foundation on that. And other grants and gap financing, it's going to require, like I said, a layered capital stack. And we have the team and the expertise to go after all of those buckets of money that the project might be eligible for. And then transparency. We will be completely transparent with the town on our pro forma and what we're planning for the project. There was questions about our application not having a lot of detail in terms of the financing. And a lot of that is because we're super early in the project and it's all going to change. And this was a request for qualifications. And we really wanted to be heavy on that because we want to design the project with the town, not for the town. So transparency, we will be completely transparent with all of the numbers and where the project lands and look at different opportunities for what it means for having lower income thresholds versus higher income thresholds and how that affects the gap and what gap money is available and all of it. And then align interests. We will seek to structure the deal so that our interests are aligned so that we're not winning if the town's not winning by getting a successful project completed. And then I think what sets us apart the most is the local presence and local understanding with me being a full-time resident of Fraser and here all the time. I mean, I'm basically only working on projects in Winter Park because that's all that I want to work on. We're not pursuing other workforce housing projects in other mountain communities. I care about this community and doing everything that I can to help this community and again, put together a great team to help that along. So next question, I'm going to pass over to Scott, who's kind of the pro forma guy, and he can talk to. He has more experience in workforce housing stuff than I do, so he can speak to the next question. Scott.
Thanks, Charlie. So Horizon is active in affordable housing. We have developed 61 affordable housing projects, and if you counted market rate, that number goes up to closer to 100 projects. But we're very active here in the Midwest. Done a lot of projects in Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois. We've built other multifamily in Minnesota as well. And our experience extends out to the mountain regions too. We developed a project with Charlie in Denver and have had some other experiences nearby. But this is a really good question that's being asked regarding the challenges, and we put some thought into this. And of course, there's challenges that kind of happen with every project. But I was kind of thinking about this in two different ways. One being, I think, more globally, and that would be the first bullet point here, which is project financing. So it really seems like now more than ever, it's just really, really difficult to make projects work with costs having increased, interest rates have gone up. It really puts the squeeze on projects. So we're seeking that public-private partnership more and more. We always have, but these soft funding and gaps have really grown in the last couple of years. And what I wanted to kind of highlight here is that it's really common for us to see a gap of somewhere around 20% in a project. So some of these numbers can be kind of eye-popping, but they're also sizable projects, and this is quite common that we're seeing throughout our region and in the country, really. There's always going to be fluctuation in terms of what those numbers are doing. One of the benefits that I think our team brings is that we have kind of a vertically integrated company here at Horizon. We've got development, construction, and property management. So I'm sort of getting real-time feedback and data from our contractor, which helps guide decision-making, helps guide design, and things like that. But really, our strategy to help with the project financing is to really hone in on what that project scope looks like, identify what the gap is as quickly as we can and with as much accuracy as we can, and then really just kind of work to form those partnerships and identify ways to bridge the gap. The other thing too, with having some of the construction expertise that we have in-house, is that I think that helps to better inform some of the design decisions that we're making and allows us to maintain the quality that we put our name on every single project, but yet do so in a way that's cost efficient as well. So that's kind of the project financing, and I'll get into a couple more of the some of the sources that we've worked with in the next question, but just kind of quickly touching on a few others. And I mentioned that I looked at it in a couple different ways. The first being globally, and the next one, I think each project is going to end up having its own set of challenges. We always say every project is unique, and I think we'll see this here too. I've worked on several difficult projects before. One having, a number of them having like environmental issues, for example. Others being zoning, NIMBY issues, and things like that. So we like to work systematically through projects. We have a development checklist that helps us to identify pitfalls that we've encountered on other projects. And really, from a local level, we really appreciate kind of working from the ground up, essentially, and having a neighborhood approach, a local approach, and getting feedback first, and then helping to react to that and creating the best project. So that's a little bit on question number 2. And then with question 3 here, the financial strategies, we could talk for a long time about different strategies, but just kind of listed out a few of these that are more common in some of the affordable housing projects that we work on. Yeah, I guess I won't go through this whole list, but I'll just say that, for example, on projects that we have closed recently, I mean, there's been several sources of funding, range in some of the more common sources are tax increment financing, home, CDBG, affordable housing funds, some sort of subordinate loans in projects and things like that. So I think with the one point I wanted to kind of drive home with that is that with our experience on the team and having done this for a really long time, there is a pathway forward. We just have to kind of figure it out as a team. And so I think that's all that I wanted to say on that, Charlie.
Okay, great. Thanks, Scott. So on to the site plan and financial presentation. The site plan, this was just a first stab at a site plan on the site. And it was really designed off of what I saw. I reviewed the downtown Fraser strategic plan, and this graphic on the right here is straight out of the plan. And so really tried to focus our design based on this, making sure that the building scale fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. So these are 3-story buildings with entrances on all sides. So they are apartment buildings, but they look and feel like townhomes more than a bigger apartment building. And then surface parking. And one of the main things, the 2 things that were driving the design of the first phase of the site, and this down here is the first phase, is scale with the town, making sure it fits with the town and it's not a completely out of place in downtown Fraser. And 2 is affordability and quality. We know that these buildings, Horizon builds these buildings all the time. We just partnered on a project in Wisconsin that had almost this exact building type on it. And it's a really desirable apartment building, and it fits in with lower density residential neighborhoods, and it's super efficient to build from a construction standpoint. So that was why we came up with this as the first stab, but I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's all going to change. One other thing, on the northwest corner here, we did leave this open, and it was kind of buried in our application, but we did leave phase two up here open for commercial space. So this could include some neighborhood serving commercial, which is what the downtown Fraser strategic plan called for. But again, we're open to considering commercial. We want to get more feedback on the site. We're open to it all. This was just how we came up with the first phase. Okay, thanks. And then phase 3 is some townhomes kind of wrapping the southeast side of the site to again tie into the rest of the neighborhood. So so that's it on the site plan, and I could talk. This could be a 3-hour presentation. We'd still run out of time, so I'm going to try to keep her moving here. So this is just a rough building design, so just to showcase that it kind of looks like townhomes. And then getting into the financials, there was a question, and it's my fault for not being clear in how we were presenting the unit mix and the different AMI levels. So I redid our chart for what we proposed, and it's based on the housing needs assessment that the Fraser River Valley Housing Partnership put together is the best gauge for where the need is for workforce housing. And I just highlight this first chart here shows ownership units versus rental units, and there's a far greater need and sheer number of units for rental. So that's why we focused on that for phase 1. And then the renter income distribution, they had a table in the housing needs assessment. And so as you'll see, our proposal is at the bottom here, and we tried to match this as much as possible. So less than 60% AMI, 34% of the units, 60 to 80, 17%, and so on. And we just took this 80 to 100 out because we were just trying to not have a whole bunch of different AMI levels. We think it might want to be consolidated. But again, this is totally up for negotiation. This is not set in stone at all. We're willing to look at other allocations and show what that means for the gap financing. We can do that very quickly. And then we didn't present a ton of financial information because it's a request for qualifications, and these numbers are all going to change. And we didn't want to get people latching on to certain numbers and go down a rabbit hole of like, well, why is this number when it's all going to change? This is super early in the process. So I just want to show you that we do have a very detailed financial model. This is the model that Scott uses on the 3 to 4 projects he puts applications in on per year. And we can go through all of this in greater detail if we're taking a next step, which we certainly hope that we are. Where are we at on time? We're done. Okay, so you can see we do have the financial information as well. So
Great, thanks for that.
thank you for the opportunity, you guys. We're really excited about this and appreciate you guys for the opportunity.
Right.
Thanks.
You're not done yet.
Oh, that's right. We
No,
have
we did
questions.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still got 30 minutes.
All right.
So,
Need some water?
No, I'm
Some water.
good. I
Okay,
can
yeah.
talk for days.
okay, so first question is, do you anticipate any ongoing or upcoming projects your firm is working on that may conflict with capacity or resource challenges with Victoria Villages?
Absolutely not. First of all, our project in Winter Park is very much tied to the resort connection. That whole project was designed off of what's been in planning since 1985. And it's not going to happen overnight. And we've put a team together to pursue this project. It's going to be different capital sources for this project than it would be for that project. And I don't see any competition and no conflicts of interest whatsoever.
Okay. Board, do you have any follow-up on? How have you or your team facilitated a master planning process before? It's a two-part question. How would you collaborate with the town through this process? And you kind of touched on this in your presentation, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak to the master planning process in Winter Park. It's not for, there's a major workforce housing component to that project, but it's not just a workforce housing project. So I'd like Scott to chime in as well. But with that project, what we did was I studied the plans. I read every public planning document that the town of Winter Park has ever done and the resort. And we crafted a project based on the goals that were outlined in all of those plans. And I'd be happy to share with you. I have a slide deck that I put together for public outreach for that project. And we put it together, and then we went to the council and we met with the council in executive session a couple of times. We worked with the resort and crafted that project to fit their goals, and then took it to the public and did 2 public outreach sessions before the public comment section of the entitlement process. So we went above and beyond and getting feedback and crafting the project and making tweaks until the last minute. I mean, literally 1 week before the entitlements went to vote for town council, we made a major change based on a bunch of public feedback that we received on that project. So again, I encourage you to reach out to town of Winter Park staff and council on how that process went. And then Scott and maybe Joe has something to add to that as well, but let's keep it quick, guys, because we're on a clock.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it quick, Charlie, but I do want to add that we have a significant amount of master planning experience. A number of the larger campuses that we have developed have that component to it, and we master plan to start out. The other thing that I wanted to point out is I am just finishing working, well, it's under construction. It's in Madison, Wisconsin, a project, a 7-acre piece of land in downtown Madison that we worked with an architect and a nonprofit to master plan, which involved a very, very high level of resident engagement. This is a property that is a 102-unit existing multifamily that we basically demolished the entire thing without moving a single resident or displacing any residents, and building all brand new buildings. And we accomplished all that with engagement by the residents. That ground up approach is kind of what I talked about earlier, and what we feel really strongly about is getting buy-in, getting feedback, and developing a plan based on that feedback. So while we put together a plan that we shared with you, that, as Charlie alluded to, can change and may change. So we welcome that opportunity. I just wanted to point out that we've got an extensive background with that planning.
Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, other than Scott described our process perfectly. We've done that with Horizon numerous times, and I don't remember the last time we've done a project like this without engagement in the community, both municipalities and external stakeholders. So looking forward to it.
And JLA is a planning and architecture firm, so.
Correct.
we have
Correct.
both.
Yeah.
We have only 3 more questions, just
Okay.
to give you an idea of the number of questions for
Okay,
the 30 minutes.
Thanks.
Can you please discuss, I'm sorry, board, any follow-up questions on that specific question? No. Okay, can you please?
Could I ask a follow-up question then? About your engagement, because I've been involved with a lot of engagement processes with municipal projects before the past, and I know sometimes they can go in different directions. And what are your greatest takeaways from those engagement processes when things seem to be going right versus when things just kind of come out of the left field and hit you blind?
Yeah, good. Thank you for asking the question, Ed. My biggest takeaway is that that a lot of times when there's opposition to a project, it's because there's a misunderstanding and they haven't received all of the details about the project and the planning that's gone into it. And so with our project, with the Cooper Creek Village project, I literally met personally, individually with anybody who reached out. I met with all of the homeowners associations that are surrounding that project and explained it to them and spent time with them. And that's really what it took to shift a lot of opinions. And we started out with a lot of opposition, and when it went to, not a lot, I mean relatively, there was some opposition and way more support. I mean, we got way more letters of support than there were letters of opposition. And at the last meeting, when it went to a vote, I'd basically exhausted everybody who had concerns. I had met with them, given them the time and addressed their concerns. And I think there were 2 public comments on the night of the vote for one of the most influential projects to be approved in Winter Park's history. So I think it's hearing people out, it's meeting with them, taking the time to sit down and hear their concerns and make sure that we're thinking about those concerns and have good responses to them.
Just a quick note to add to that, Charlie, if I may. The project that I spoke about in Madison that we had an extensive engagement process with was with a population that, is a low-income population, but also extremely diverse population. Didn't even all speak English. And so we had interpreters and things like that. And I think through all that, really for us was an opportunity to sort of see things in a different lens or from a different perspective. And it actually was refreshing to hear different opinions. And because we're all working on a project really hard and you get so ingrained in what you're thinking that it's actually really helpful to hear something different and appreciated. So and it helps us learn new things too. And if we can strike that balance with the local community and engage people and hear their thoughts, it just ends up working out to be a better end result. Is kind of, it just makes you feel good too that, hey, we included people with the process, and I think people really appreciate that. So we've always had really good luck starting at that level of hearing people. So I just wanted to add that thought.
And one last thought is, not everybody is going to be super excited about this project. No matter what the design is, there are going to be people who don't want to see this project happen. And so one of the things that we realized that was the same for our project, there were a few folks that were adamantly against any type of development ever, and ours in particular. And so we offset that with support, with genuine support from trusted community members, and reached out to them and got them to come to public meetings and to submit letters to the council to make that process easier for the council. So one last comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bring up any other questions from board? No? Okay. Third question, can you please discuss previous capital stacks you've used for affordable housing projects to meet AMI goals, and how effective were they?
Yeah, I'm gonna pass that one off to Scott, who has a whole lot of experience in this.
Sounds good. Well, I could talk for a long time about this, but we'll condense that down into just a minute or two. So capital stacks. So on affordable, it just depends on what affordable housing we're talking. If it's a tax credit application, I mean, there's different ways to look at things, but I think generally speaking, there's equity in a project, there's debt in a project, and then there's pretty much everything else that we need in order to fill that soft gap or soft funding. So on a project on a 101 unit project that we recently opened in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, which is a suburb of Milwaukee, it was a $21.9 million project. We had $12.1 million of tax credit equity, a loan of just over $6 million. We have, and the rest of the funding was like around 20% of the project was through, funds that we had raised locally through grants, through affordable housing funds. So we went through the FHLB, Federal Home Loan Bank program, and got $850,000 for that. The city of Wauwatosa came forward with tax increment financing, so that amounted to $1.1 million. Milwaukee County was $700,000 in home funds. There were CDBG funds for $400,000. And all of that adds up to this $21.9 million. It's just one example of how it takes, in many cases, and more now than ever before, several different layers of funding. And how those different sources of funding intermix with each other is sort of the experience that we bring, because we've done this a number of different times, and there may be different requirements and paperwork, documentation, things that we need to follow up on. Those are all things that we're quite experienced with. So anyway, that's just one example, but I could give several more in a similar way. But oftentimes it does take a lot of effort in the early going to identify what that gap is, to come up with a strategy, and then to work really closely in your design and estimating process to make sure that you're not growing that you could actually maybe shrink it by doing creative things that help maintain the quality too. So is that sort of answering the question?
It is, thank you.
Okay.
I think I'll just add one more thing, that all of the different, or not all, but some of the different pools of money that the project might be eligible for. Scott mentioned that they have different requirements, and maybe Scott, you can elaborate on that just a little bit, that you've got to tweak a project to fit a certain requirement for a certain chunk of money, and determine if it's worthwhile to make the change to the project. With, in this case, with you guys, you were going to be looking at all of the different sources of capital that are available and what those requirements are. And it might change something. There might be a requirement that there has to be an energy efficiency related to the project, and that might increase the costs a little bit. So we'll work with you guys to say, here's this pool of money, we think we should go after it, but it's going to add this much cost, and this was what it means for the feasibility of the project, and work hand in hand with the town.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point, Charlie. So there's oftentimes requirements, and those requirements can be like, you have to target certain AMI levels in order for this funding to qualify. There could be other funding sources where they may have other goals, such as energy efficiency or green building. There is another project that we're working on that we actually have a grant from a county that it's a water quality grant. So we've actually implemented features in the project where we are meeting those requirements, and we're doing some pretty creative things to get there, including like underground cisterns, green roofs, things like that. So there's a myriad of possibilities, really, but it really just kind of comes down to what are those gap funding sources, and how do we work together to identify a pathway forward, is kind of how I look at it.
Okay, good, thanks. Board, any follow-up
Have
questions?
you guys ever run into a project where you had to do more sales than rentals because there wasn't enough people that wanted to rent? Not that
I couldn't hear the question.
I don't know if my mic works or not. The question was, have you ever run into a project where you ended up having to do more sales and lower the number of rentals you have to get to your capital needs?
Did you say for sale?
Yeah.
Okay. Charlie, do you want to take that or?
I think it's more related to workforce housing. I guess if the demand wasn't there for apartments, then we would, if we had a project that we were planning on having apartments for and there wasn't demand for the apartments, then we switched to a for sale. Is that the question? I don't think we'd be able to in this, because this building, what we're proposing for phase one is an apartment building. It's not going to be condominiumized. In order to sell those units, we'd have to condominiumize the building and totally change the whole program.
Well, as you do the first building, then you move into the project. The first building's not filling up. Would you then try to convert the other into sales instead of having them as rental?
Oh, potentially. Yeah. I mean, the first phase is going to be pretty well set, because all the capital is going to be set up for what we're proposing. And so changing midstream on it within a phase is going to be really difficult. But for sure, I mean, we're going to learn what we learn in phase one is going to have some bearing on what happens in phase two and phase three. I really don't think that there's going to be a demand problem. There's such a huge need for apartments that I'm not concerned about it. But one thing that I am a little bit concerned about is the AMI levels, and making sure that we really study the AMI levels and get those right. Because if our financing and our agreements with the town are set on certain AMI levels, if we misread the population on AMI levels, then we might disqualify a lot of people that wanted to rent. So that I think is something that we'll have to be super careful about and really dig into.
Now, are we using the county's AMI, or are we using town specific or region? How are we breaking this out?
It's broken out by the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority sets the AMI levels and the income limits for
Each town?
and the rent limits for each county. It is per county. Yeah. Yep. And then it's actually 95%. Typically, you can only charge 95% of the maximum rents, depending on what financing you're going after.
Thank you. Any other?
I have a question. Do you guys have any experience building daycares in any of your developments? And if so, what's your experience procuring funding for that specific kind of thing?
Good question, Scott. I don't have any experience building daycares, but I want to come back to that question because I have been in touch with the daycare up here.
We have built a number of different, we don't just build residential. I would say that that's like 90% of what we do, but we have built other commercial facilities, including hotels, water resorts, mall, like commercial, like daycare certainly is within the realm of what I think can be possible. Adding a commercial component to the mix just adds kind of an element of uncertainty, I think, just in terms of how the capital stack works and how the deal comes together. I think we put some of that into our response to the questions that came out initially. But I think we'd be happy to take a look at if there's a desire to do some daycare component or other commercial component. I think we would look to make sure that that has, like, I don't want to call it like an ancillary use or like it works with multifamily, which I think a daycare does. And then we just need to kind of study the feasibility of that, not only financially, but just kind of from a market perspective. I mean, we would need to kind of see that a daycare be something that is in demand. And Charlie might be able to speak more to that.
I'm on the wait list, Scott.
Okay, good.
On the wait list.
So you know.
So anyway, yes, it's definitely in the realm of, it's in our wheelhouse. We can do that, but it's not something that we really have contemplated to a high level just yet, just because we've really been focused on the affordable housing component here and making sure we meet that demand.
So none of the bigger developments you've done have had a daycare center inside or in any of them?
No, so a lot of the bigger developments will have, like, I mean, we have done some mixed use, but we want to be really careful of in a lot of these locations is that we've seen a lot of mixed use not be successful. Not any of our projects, but we've seen other projects that get built and there's the intent of, we want to do first floor retail and then apartments above it. And then 2 years later, you drive by and you see that the retail is still vacant, and so we're just careful about that and how we underwrite for it, because that's a risk to the developer and to the project.
Mhm.
So it's all possible though. I mean, I think that would be a good complementary use if that's something that ends up working out.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just curious if there was like any benefits for getting grants and stuff like that for if you put one in,
There might be, and we would be happy to explore that.
We'd
I
have to
reached
put one in.
out to two of my closest friends up here on the board of grandkids and reached out to them and said, hey, where are you guys at? What's that?
Yeah, they're on the board there, the
Yeah.
grandkids.
And I reached out to them to see what their needs were because this was something that was identified as a potential use in the RFQ. And they said that they do have a lot of demand. They are working on another opportunity. So it didn't seem like it was imminent for this project, but for phase 2, it could certainly be a component of phase 2 or phase 3. And it would be a tremendous location for it, and it would be great for the project. So we're super open to exploring that. That kind of opens up a whole nother can of worms and adds a whole nother complexity to an already complicated project in terms of financing. So for sure, something that we're interested in, perhaps phase 2, given the timeline that this project is on with the grants that Fraser got. It might make more sense to think about that in phase 2 or phase 3, unless something changes with the other opportunity. That grandkids is just one of the daycare centers up here, but
And the other one's located in a development too for low income housing. So I'm just kind of curious how they pulled that off.
Anyway, you got more questions?
Not too much.
two more.
Two more.
Any other follow-up questions?
I was happy that you brought up mentioning energy efficiency. And how is that determined, the level of where in the process? Because even though it costs more at the beginning, it makes it more affordable for the residents in the long run.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think planning for that as soon as you possibly can is probably the ideal circumstance. We like to put together a scope or a program document for each project that we work on, and we try to identify all of our goals for the project, and then we start designing for that and budgeting for that. And I would highly encourage the group to think in that way. And if that's a goal, I think that that's something that we can accommodate starting immediately as we start thinking about the project.
And we can share what the cost difference would be for adding that level of energy efficiency, what it means for the project. But sorry, all of a sudden we're almost out of time. Other questions?
Yeah, 2 more.
Yeah.
Next one is, we recognize there are many current challenges with the labor market, supply challenges and material prices. Describe your firm's capacity to navigate these challenges to deliver a project on time and on budget.
So I'll just kind of answer that quick, Charlie, and say that we, our company having the construction group or arm with it is extremely experienced with it. I mean, there's ongoing and daily dialogue about those very topics. We're bidding right now a ton of projects, and just to give you a sense, over the last 6 years, we've built 10,000 units of apartments, and we build approximately 1,800 to 2,000 units a year. And so you can imagine the amount of estimating and bidding and things like that go on. We have a constant beat on what those labor markets and material prices are doing. And we're also staying in touch with other contractors, one even locally there in the Denver area, to share similar information. So those things are constantly changing. I think one thing we can guarantee is that a price that's given to us today is not even valid tomorrow. But we're doing our very best to navigate that. Charlie, do you want to add anything?
Just that we would partner with a local contractor who has the subcontractor relationships here, and having Horizon has a construction arm in-house. They have tons of experience. They will help direct the design of the project and value engineering and select the contractor who has the boots on the ground here to make sure that the project gets done in a timely manner.
Do you have a contractor in mind?
Well, I mean, we've met with 4 or 5 contractors. It
Okay.
depends on what the end product ends up being. I mean, if
Gotcha.
it's this 3-story walk-up product that we showed on the site plan, might be a different contractor than if it's an elevator served building with underground parking and that sort of thing. So we've met with Big Valley and PGA, our local. There's a contractor out of Steamboat who's built some workforce housing product, and then Brinkman out of Denver, and there's another one in Denver that builds up here. So
Thank you.
they're all interested in the project.
Are any of those guys working on the Cooper Creek Village project?
No, we're not even close to selecting contractors for that. We have 3 years of infrastructure that needs to happen before anything's really going vertical there.
Gotcha.
Okay, any other follow-up questions to that one? No, last question, why should the town of Fraser partner with you on this project?
I think I hit on it at the beginning with the team that we put together. I mean, we put together a world-class team with JLA, Horizon, and Griffiths Blessing, and then I'm local. I mean, I'm going to be, for lack of a better term, the coordinator or the quarterback for this project and making sure that things are happening. And I have a lot personally invested in this project. I mean, I hear about it from all of the businesses who lease from us. We have over 60 businesses that lease from us in Winter Park, hear about it all the time. And they all know that I'm pursuing this project. All my friends know that I'm pursuing this project. So I think I will have personally a lot higher level of responsibility with this project than anybody else. And so for what that's worth, I think I think that's unique. I think that sets us apart, that I have such a vested interest in this community and so much responsibility, and then a great team to work
Yeah, and
on
if I
together.
can just add to that really quick, Charlie, and I'll just tell everyone there that I have a tremendous amount of respect for W.C. Johnson and Charlie, and I can tell you that you're absolutely in great hands with Charlie, and the group that he's assembled here in front of you is a group that's extremely passionate about affordable housing, and we want to see a project like this move forward. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the town to partner with a group that's all very, very skilled at what they do.
And if I may, just real quickly, when this opportunity came up, I made 2 phone calls to put this team together. I called Scott because we have a great working relationship, 15 years and a bunch of successful projects. Scott brought JLA in because they've worked together on a whole bunch of successful projects. And then I called my neighbor on Grand Lake, Buck Blessing, who is the founder of Griffiths Blessing and manages 12,000 apartment units in the Mountain West. And he answered the phone at the airport and he said, I told him about the project. He said, absolutely. He's like, absolutely, sign us up, put me in touch with BJ. We were on the phone, we were on a conference call with Scott and BJ 2 days later, going over the operating expenses for the project. And they were just like, all hands on deck, 2 phone calls, here we are. So yeah, so we're really excited about it. Thank you guys again. Sorry we went over on time. Sorry to everybody who goes after us. We went over on time, but
How much time does he have left?
We have about 2.5 minutes.
Okay, any other?
oh, we do. Oh,
any last
I thought we had 15 and 15. So
15 and
good.
30.
All right.
Do we have any last 2-minute questions? Do you want to spend 2 minutes? Or are you done?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll take the time if you're going to give it to us. I just want to address again the other project. I know there are concerns about potential competition with and access to resources with our other project going in Winter Park. And again, these are totally separate, and we're doing a lot. We worked really closely with the town of Winter Park on workforce housing for that project. And I've been studying over the last 3 years what all the other mountain town communities are working on. My neighbor is on the board of the Fraser River Housing Partnership, and we get together to talk about the issues and how we're going to solve the issues. So So really, again, my focus is that project, which is a much longer timeline, and this project in the very near term. And they are related in a certain extent, because in order for that project to succeed, we need to address affordable housing as a community. That's why I'm pursuing this project. It's not for any other reason than that. It's not our, like I said, we're not pursuing these types of projects in other communities. We're pursuing it because we know that this community needs to solve this problem, and we have an opportunity to solve it like almost no other resort community has. We have brand new huge revenue stream coming in with the Fraser River Valley Housing Partnership. Thank you, everybody. I'm sure voted for 6A in here, and we supported those efforts as well. And there's major revenue sources. Our project is going to generate a perpetual revenue source for dedicated to workforce housing that will go to the town. It's in perpetuity on every sale. Every time a property sells, 0.5% of that sale price goes towards workforce housing. So it's not going to happen overnight. This is a huge step in the right direction to take a big bite out of the problem off the bat. And then it's going to take time and revenue to get it going. And so we're really excited about it. We believe in this community. I mean, I moved my whole life here and decided to work pretty much exclusively in Grand County when I'm in the prime of my career, because I see the opportunity here and we want to do what's right for the community. And that project was designed off of the vision of the community. And so is this project. And that's why we're so confident. I mean, it's not our idea. We're not bringing new ideas to Winter Park. We're trying to help solve the goals that the communities have laid out. So
Great.
Thank you very much. Scott, Joe, BJ, any closing thoughts?
Nope. Thank you, Charlie.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Tom.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate
Thank
it.
you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Good job. Appreciate it.
Like to welcome everybody, and if you could just sign in our sign-in sheet over here before you leave on your way out, just so we know who's here. The ground rules for this is you're going to have 15 minutes of presentation to the board. And then you're going to have an additional 30 minutes. And all of the developers, all the development teams are getting asked the same 5 questions. There may be ancillary questions from the board that go that go along with it, but those are the rules, and we'll give you a 2-minute warning
Okay.
when both the 15-minute is about up with 2 minutes, and then also the 30-minute one. So if you can just introduce yourselves and I need my.
I was gonna wait for her to get the presentation going.
Yeah. And Brittany, just want to make sure your speakers are muted and the microphone is muted. Okay. Yeah. Good. All right, we're good. All right. Hi, we're 2010 Development Group. I'm Will McDonald. It's an honor to be here, slightly terrifying. Very exciting. I've been working towards this moment since I was about 12. I've studied and helped various developments in over 50 countries. My entire education has surrounded housing, higher education, sorry. And the more you know that you don't know. And that's why I've been especially attracted to joining this competition. I like the humility that was presented in the RFQ and how you guys were asking for help. And I share in that sentiment. And that's why I've put together a lot of people that I think really complement your strengths and mine. And we're very excited. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce our team. First, I'll start with Brian, our landscape architect. We love his problem-solving skills and environmental awareness. Mike is our builder, and we are especially honored because of his past dedication to affordable housing and teaching his trades. Brad is our architect. We love his big picture perspective and his ability to basically win competitions exactly like this. And in summary, and he has a lot of experience building projects very similar to this. Brittany has a lot of educational experience, education background, and a lot of construction background, which makes her an ideal lead for the trade school and the daycare options that we want to present. And back up again. So one of our questions we were asked is ensuring success, and everyone on this team has, I feel, demonstrated through their history and through their resumes that they are dedicated to accomplishing the same goals that you are. Right now, our primary home is rented out to workforce housing. Like, we have made a lot of sacrifices, and we truly believe in creating this and creating a better community through that. I'm not going to get into the rest of the details with time. I'm going to move along to the next slide. So I want to address some of the challenges that we faced and what we've learned moving forward.
I think the first challenge that we're all going to face as a team is public opinion. There's going to be a fair amount of opposition to anything we create, whether it's 50 units or 500. And there's a lot of different approaches we can take, but very simply, our approach is going to be to take all of the housing applicants and have them present and involved in the community discussions as we move forward. And we want to engage the public and have everyone involved in every step of the way and making this a better design. Our next biggest challenge that we faced in the past is scheduling and permitting. And this is especially why we like partnering with you, is that scheduling creates a lot of issues with getting your financing to go through. As a developer, if it takes 2 weeks to develop, that can hold up $3 or $4 million. And knowing we have that partnership and you guys on our side is a big part of our traction. And that is the solution to that particular problem that brings down a lot of these projects. Funding and cash flow directly ties in with scheduling and permitting. And our solution, we've seen projects have 3-4 backups fall through at the last minute. So we've taken the preemptive step of securing funding in advance. So it's not our ideal situation. We still want to acquire grants, but we want to be entirely set to go through this entire project and have no delays. And that's our core foundation with our funding and cash flow solution. Some financial strategies that we've engaged in the past that we just discussed. The strategy that I employ in my businesses and that I want to employ here is inspired from my grandfather. He likes to joke about how he always asks us to go to his restaurant, and he owns 1% of a restaurant, but he jokes that it's his. And this restaurant was formed 60 plus years ago and is still in existence today. I realize it sounds very irrelevant, but it is a very demanding and challenging business, a lot like development, where you see a lot of failure. And the reason that this restaurant was successful is because he took 50, not him, but the person that started the restaurant, sold 51% shares. And he created an army of people invested and motivated in the success of that business that still thrives to this day. And that's the exact same approach I want to take here. We want to take you guys, the residents of this project, and the surrounding community, and get everyone invested in the success of this. With that, I would like to hand this off to Mike for a few minutes to present some of our construction details.
First of all, thank you all for your time. We really appreciate this great opportunity. My name is Mike Rosales Harrison. I'm a third generation builder and developer out of Denver. And the reason that I love this project, when we all called me, is working with an architect like this gentleman in here, hand to hand. Design development, the design build is perfect for this scenario. Shoulder to shoulder, working with you guys and the architect will pretty much help us to forecast any challenges that we will face financially, schedule, and some others that might come. By preventing all those challenges or facing those challenges face to face, we can stay on schedule, reassure the community that we will acknowledge all the concerns, and make sure that we create some ways of savings to stay in schedule values without compromising any of the building integrity. We do a lot of self-performing. What does that mean? We have a lot of laborers or skilled trades in the house, plumbers, electrical, roofing, so we stay in schedule. That way we save much, much more than anyone else by creating the opportunity within the community as well, hiring skilled trades from Fraser. Another thing that we do very well is providing housing for our employees. That way we can make sure that we can control the schedule again and control the value without risking any integrity. And this slides, as you can tell, that's one of my current projects. That's some of the skill traits that we have. And this next one, that's some of the product that we have used before in projects like yours. As you can tell, it's nothing but the best and making sure that we stay in budget. Thank you. Brian?
Hi, I'm Brian Garrett. I'm a landscape architect. I'm going to walk you through the site planning concepts. So one of the amazing things about this project and the bold choice that you guys made to buy this parcel and then develop it and really increase your community and your population is that this is both connected to the existing town and it's also connected to the environment in a really unique way. And all of our planning efforts and design efforts are really looking to create those connections. So both to the wild nature of St. Louis Creek, which is a little bit kind of disguised right now, and then also the connection to the Fraser River Trail, really make that part of the project. So this diagram up here, you can really see, these major connections that go through town and really taking, sort of creating a parallel connection that works away from the highway, right? A community connection, really. And that's what you guys have outlined a lot in the master planning and the downtown planning. So I got so excited. We really see this as a great opportunity. The one thing I'd like to point out on the diagram really is the magenta circle. That's a 5-minute walk. So if you can see our site in the middle, you can walk to every local business within 5 minutes. And that's a great opportunity for local business, but also for the people that are going to come live here. There's going to be hundreds of people and families that are going to be within a 5-minute walk of everything. I think it's really going to change the complexion of what living in town is like. And so our approach is to make all those connections really strong and vibrant. This is just really looking at the site, looking at the different portions of it. And you'll probably get a couple of these this evening. But, the way whoops, if you go back, yeah. If the creek bisects the site, we really like in the wetlands as well. And, there's a lot of problems with building and permitting and all that sort of stuff. Our site plan really wants to pull all that wetland, all that wildness, all that great, sort of landscape out into the project while also connecting to the river trail and bringing people into it. So really trying to use that wetland area as a major asset and a major focal point. And also it creates a destination on the end of the Fraser River Trail along with the Lions Ponds projects and that. So you really have then 2 ends to this trail. You can also continue on to the rec center and beyond. So this is plan A, we're calling it, and this is the site plan that we came up with. There's a lot of different ways to approach this, and you guys have talked about it having a master planning process, but we need to get something on paper to really kind of understand the site and get our juices flowing. So as you can see on the legend, that tells you everything that's in the site. But what I want to express tonight is what an opportunity it is to build this next stage of the town. I mean, as a gateway and as a connection point, as I mentioned before. And so within this site plan, I've done everything I can as a landscape architect to make the open spaces great, with playgrounds and picnic areas and having the trail run through. We're talking about bringing in local artists for, different types, to make an art trail. And because of the way it's bisected, and you have this bridge, there's a lot of different changes. It's not just one thing. Hey, here's a straight shot. It could be very dynamic and very interesting in a place that not just people that live there will go. So again, if you just look at what we're trying to accomplish in this site plan, we think that this is within scale, will fit in while meeting your goals of bringing, somewhere between 200 and 400 new people into the community. So we tried to be very sensitive to the nature, be very sensitive to the town, and be very sensitive to the scale and how it will impact the neighbors. And that's what I will bring and our team will bring, is that sensitivity to make sure that we succeed on that level. And that when, the trees actually grow, in a few years, that you guys look back and say, wow, we never even thought it could be this great. Quickly, Plan B. Yeah, you can go to Plan B. Plan B is what it sort of says, Plan B. There was talk about a parking garage. We wanted to explore that. We wanted to explore what is the full potential of the site, and also be ready for the master planning process, understanding, okay, well, what can fit on the site? What are our capabilities? What is the capacity of the site? So we had to go and we had to test it. The design, the architectural language of this is not very refined at all, but it does give us a good understanding of what the max capacity of the site. And we want to bring that to this community design process, so you can say, well, can't we do more? Can't we do more? Well, here's what it might look like if we do the most. So that's really what this is. And that's, you can see up there, it's 370 plus units depending on it, and 510 parking spaces that, could be shared with the city in a commercial corridor along Parkway that would sort of revitalize that edge and really sort of point to the future of what that space between, the 40 and the river could really be in terms of a business corridor and community. Keep going. Oh boy. Yeah, so that I pretty much talked through most of that. You can keep going. Go. Oh. All right. I'm not seeing the bullet points. I understand. Okay, there. All right. So just some closing bullet points. We're local. We have personal existing involvement with the community and housing. We have personal investment and commitment to the success of this project. We're proactive in community engagement that fosters engagement and solutions. The builder and developer reduce costs and shares profits with Fraser. We only profit when we deliver on our commitment. We're going to promote social and economic diversity for sustainability. We're going to provide solar that significantly reduces HOA and electric costs for residents. We're not asking for any variances, grants, or town funding to be successful. We're open to it, but we don't need it. We'll actively partner to achieve grants. We're efficient and work in-house workforce and experience to complete quality housing quickly and on budget. We're able to find solutions in partnership to break ground in fall of 23. We're providing large daycare and trade school facilities that enable more to enter the workforce. And we're open to finding solutions that minimize short-term rental, maximize this value, community, and use. Thank you.
All right. Good job.
Great. Thank you. The next phase of this is you're going to have 30 minutes, and we're going to ask you five questions. Like I said, there might be follow-up questions. So whoever's going to answer the questions, if you want to come up to the podium.
More than one of them.
There-
Yeah,
Yeah, depending on the question.
how many of you? Five of you can stand up there.
We'll make eye contact and figure out who will answer each one.
Yeah, and what the question is.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Brad Winnicott. I work for Oregon Architects as a project manager and a designer. And I guess I'll wait for the questions to come, but I did want to address quickly our firm. One of the building types that we pursue and are proud of are affordable housing and workforce housing. Our last project completed was in Longmont, Colorado. It's the Spoke and Coffin. Brought a lot of stakeholders, a lot of the community. Actually, and this is downtown Longmont. We had to reach out to business. We gathered funding for grants and pushed through a successful project where everyone is in agreement upon completion and probably going into the future that this is a successful housing, affordable housing or workforce housing project. And I just wanted to mention from the architectural standpoint, we come from that direction. We our principles are integrity. We're creating a project where the Spoken Kaufman, we treated it more as row housing than to get away from the dormitory style, to give everyone their own entry, to have respect for the users and the residents of the space. And like we were saying, tie that to the assets that you have in the community on the green path, your master plan for the river, Fraser River. And I think it's a great opportunity in the north, where it's sited on the north end. It can be what is kind of being termed now, the next level is transformational housing. And that's what we tried to get to, and we've had success with Longmont. We are also connected with the Denver Housing Authority, the Boulder Housing Authority, and we do a lot of this type of housing. And we've gotten pretty good at it. So I'll stop there. I'm kind of done.
Okay,
Thanks, Brad.
okay, yeah, thanks. The first question, do you anticipate any ongoing or upcoming projects your firm is working on that may conflict with capacity or resource challenges with Victoria Village?
No, not at all. We make sure, forecast the labor force. We understand that there's a shortage of it right now. And as they stated before, we have teach many different trades. So we reach out to them and they will always help us.
Okay, any follow-up questions from the board? Nope, okay.
From the architectural standpoint, the newest Colorado Division of Housing is HB 317. Things that were just put in a law, they're taking the COVID asset and doing set asides for every jurisdiction for transformational housing. And they're pushing forward on making these grants easy to obtain. And there is monies there. I know we're self-funding, but we also have the ability to time-wise to kick off right now and start taking some of these monies using, we create a Fair Housing Act compliant. We'd meet all the compliance rules and regulations for any of that funding. Right now it's 250,000 to 10 million. Depending on how far you want to take it. If you fill out the application, you get $250,000. We meet all and address everything. And that'll be an immediate partnership with you guys, because the jurisdiction municipality is that's who goes after it. The Grand County has it set aside. So just it's there, and it can help bring this project to the level where you can be proud of it. And then how we address the actual workforce and the people and the housing and how we.
Brian, could I get you to use the,
Okay, sorry.
just because we have people online.
Sorry,
Okay, thank
create
you.
consensus in the community so everyone feels like this is a winning project for everyone.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that was going to be my observation is we do have people online and it's also being recorded. So if you could
Please
just
use
step
the
up to the microphone, please. Thank you.
Next question, how have you or your team facilitated a master planning process before? Two-part question. Second part, how would you collaborate with the town through this process?
Yeah, I'll start. I've been involved in quite a few master planning efforts that involve community outreach, both with low income housing and then also some campus planning. A lot of it had many meetings, a lot of involvement, having to present many options, listen to comments and collate them and really just dig in and try to come up with a product that everyone was on board with. So I've done that quite a bit. I'll let Brad speak. I know he's very.
For me, it's about building personal relationships and these ideas with the stakeholders involved in the process. What we can benefit from by, we talk about connections with the site, and there's connections with the community, and it's the personal connections of the stakeholders. And we are a flexible group, but we pursue projects we believe in. We believe in this project. We think we can meet that success that I think everybody here wants to meet, and no one wants, things dubbed as, workforce housing. Somehow, just the terminology brings up ideas. What we want to do is be transformational again. And I think we have experience, and through the deductive process going through it, we can do that. I think I wondered a little bit there.
Okay. Any follow-up questions, board?
Could I ask a quick question here?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor. You had mentioned before about getting your grandfather's model and 1% interest and so forth. And you made a comment about getting residents invested in this project. How would you go about doing that?
So I want to start with the residents that are going to, we want to start the application process right off the bat and get the list of people that are locals that have lived here that want this, and having that full list. And we want them invested and engaged in the process of how we're going to design. And we want them to understand, like, when you're involved and we're deciding on how many units we're going to have, that's the difference between some of them getting what they want and some of them not. And having them there, that makes them invested, because that's how they're going to accomplish their goal of getting this housing is being involved. And that's what we want to help encourage.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question is, can you please discuss previous capital stacks you've used for affordable housing projects to meet AMI goals, and how effective were they? Please, can you step up to the mic, please?
Absolutely. So repeat that question for me.
Yep, will do. Can you please discuss previous capital stacks you've used for affordable housing projects to meet AMI goals, and how effective were they?
In the past, we have, I'm going to use the example of the Spoken Kaufman in Longmonts, because that's our most recent. We were in the 80% line for that. The new monies that have been set aside for Grand County, this is called a resort community. I think there's a designation there. I think it's in the order of 170%. But what our last process, we got the monies from HUD. We worked with HUD a lot. We Energy Star, we used Energy Logic. We got monies for the Fair Housing Act and solar and Energy Department of Energy across the board. So that is how that approach, the AMI, is kind of established. It took years to get those monies together.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Just, Will, I see that you guys have about 170 non-restricted units.
There's two different proposals.
Yeah,
but
yeah, sorry, that's
yes.
your high density one, your medium density.
Yes,
Low density is 110. And that's your main funding mechanism for the project?
is the market rate product?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we have funding lined out, but
Yeah.
that's how we intend to be profitable on it. Yes.
On those units, will you offer it to the citizens of Fraser and Winter Park first?
I don't foresee an issue doing first right of refusal. I'd just like to point out, we've picked smaller units for a reason, and it may look kind of scary on the outside, but there's a lot of research that shows that people want to simplify their lives, and yeah, maybe not a tiny home, but something smaller is, our whole theme is connections, and we believe that the connections are created when people have less stuff. All the studies are showing that people are connecting with each other when they have less stuff that they have to connect with. And that's a part of our design. And those smaller designs, it makes a fairly minimal difference between our market rate product and our deed restricted product.
Yeah, I did notice you're one of the few groups that recognize that people are looking for houses they can afford on their own or with that one special person. Roommates have kind of gone to the wayside, so I think that's good.
Well, yeah, it was your own housing study that stated like you guys want more studios, and that's really what we tried to focus on. But at the same time, we feel there's a lack of families here and we want to build community. So we didn't want to exclude that either. We want all eco-socioeconomic diversities to be involved in this.
Great, thanks.
Louis, you got it?
Yeah, hi, thanks for your presentation. I'm just wondering, on your RFQ Q&A responses, you mentioned about modular and prefab units. I'm wondering, what percentage would that be and where are they being built? And is that how you're able to really come in below a lot of the other bids thus far that in terms of reducing your cost?
So the terminology modular is not per se what most of us think. We have built products that we prefab the walls in Denver, in a factory. So that's how we reduce cost. It's not modular. It's pretty much like a big puzzle. We just bring the walls with windows and all, and we just stand them up.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's an inferior product. In fact, I think Rome has done a lot of that modular building. But I was just wondering, in terms of your construction, is most of the construction going to be modular, built off-site? And
As far, I think, yes. Mike has the ability to create a fabrication for things like wall systems. There's concrete. He self-performs to a lot of these things. And there will be a modular element to this in space planning itself of the buildings, especially if we have parking below. So that gives the architect the ability to get very efficient in the mix for studios, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom. We approach it that way. We mirror and create a modular layout. So for a number of reasons, if it is Fair Housing Act stuff, we have type A and B units. We want interchangeability across the board. So in the future, if there was a fixer up where those monies are available, if that's the direction. So we designed to those standards, and modular is just part of that process.
Okay. Can I add on to that too? Now, something that we may not have been as clear as we'd like on is, the builder and the developer, we're not paying ourselves through this process. The developer fee and the builder fee, we've removed. We're taking our profits at the end when we provided what we're doing. We're not upselling our product. We're passing on our builder's discount. We're trying to make this as affordable through the entire process to prove our commitment that we're going to complete this. And that's a huge percentage of why our numbers are a lot lower.
yeah, and I guess I found it in your presentation, you mentioned something about grant money is not required for your project. I found that kind of interesting. So you're not you're basically you're not ruling out grants, but you're saying it's not needed.
No, we're active. You guys are very good at this, and we definitely want to engage you with it. We've just made it so that we're not dependent on it, so that we can start the second that our approvals are put through.
Thank you. Follow-up. I think it's also connected to scheduling. We know you guys want to build something soon. I mean, that's been very clear and through a lot of the communication. And so we don't want to be waiting for a grant approval or different windows and things like that. We want to get going as soon as possible.
Okay, any other follow-up questions? There's two more. We do have two more questions.
I know that it came up in the questions of potentially going higher than what the current code is. What would that do for your financing if you were approved for a variance to go, 55 feet or something like that?
So our Ginny Mae, like, they don't particularly have limits on how high they'll go, or it's based on performance. So we wouldn't have an issue obtaining financing to build more. And we have that adaptability through the negotiation process to get you guys what you need. These are just our ideas of what we felt were right, and we're here to work with you to create it.
Let's go back to the Spokane Kaufman in Longmont, and doing 4 floors. We did open corridors, so everyone had an address, and that kind of it created natural courtyards within the building. And instead of a front stoop, there's a bench out front, and people have personal, like, with their plants, and they're connected to their space, their house. Those types of ideas in the process are going to guide the design direction, and connect again to the community and these ideas.
Quickly follow up. Just in terms of the way the RFQ is structured, we wanted to work within the rules. We wanted to come up with a solution that works within the rules. We didn't want to go and ask for, oh, well, we could do this if you did that. So I think if you guys say, 55 feet is acceptable, we're right there with you. We'll work within those rules and we'll make something great. But again, with what the master planning process, and once we engage with you guys and really hear your thoughts that aren't sort of behind the RFP, and we really understand better, what you guys want, we're open, we're ready to design, we're ready to make it work.
Okay.
So I think a lot of what drove, we have pedestrian connections, we have bicycle connections, we have automobile connections and mass transit connections. And then, the spine of the project is this pedestrian connection through a green space that connects to your master plan for the Fraser River. What we tried to do is come with numbers and density that spoke to what we thought, the direction that the city needed. And we are flexible, but we can build a 45. We can create more interesting roof lines, and how we collect solar, even if we kept the same density and treated the roofs in a way. Part of this process will also be scale. Sequences of spaces that are tied to your fabric. There's the post office on the adjacency on the corner. What we are looking at is being sensitive, like Brian mentioned, in scale, and creating a natural and a successful next step for the town master planning. And we do connect to that master planning. So I think we were looking at parking and trying to meet the requirements. We probably can get some, depending on if there's EV, there's certain possible parking reduction that could also be incorporated. It depends on, that's that partnership between the city and our partnership at 2010 is we are looking at your forecast too. How is transportation, pedestrian, bicycle, green wild nature area? How are these paths connected? What makes sense? Because the more you accommodate, we want to accommodate everything. The more you accommodate the automobile, the more disconnections you end up with, especially at the scale of Fraser and then how we're treating housing. So we would look at all of those things and be a stakeholder and use some of your guidance and things from the outside community to make sure everyone buys in and believes in it.
Thank you. How much time is left? 2 questions left, 7 minutes. Okay, we recognize there are many current challenges with the labor market, supply challenges, and material prices. Describe your firm's capacity to navigate these challenges to deliver a project on time and on budget.
As I stated before, we have big, I would say, resource, of labor, because we have committed Harrison, we've been around for 55 years. We are committed to the ones that help us. We don't call them employees, they're partners. Right now, if I can get labor, 20, 40, whatever I need, because we have many years behind us of teaching and helping individuals to develop their skills. Materials, we've been around for a while, so we understand that. What we do, we buy direct. We don't buy through different sources. Concrete, we just signed a big deal with Ready Mixed. We can buy direct from them. We don't have to go through different middlemen. So that's how we approach the materials, cost and ability. Same like labor. We go straight to the source. Fraser, I don't know how many people you have here in reality, but I personally would love to employ some people from here. Help them to develop their skills. That's important to me personally. Hopefully I answered your question.
Okay. Any other follow-up questions on that one?
Just one additional comment on it is, we're providing our additional housing to house the workforce from wherever we need them. So that's one of our ways that we're cutting costs and that we're able to ensure success on this. So we're able to bring people from wherever we need to. Obviously, our preference is from here, but we're gonna, whatever it takes to get it done, we're gonna make it happen.
So is your housing in Denver or up here?
It's here. We have 3 11-bedroom houses and an 8-bedroom house here.
Okay. And what projects have you done up here? Any?
We've primarily converted those houses. We've added several ADUs up here. We've converted them for workforce housing. That's been our primary focus up here. We have 3 active current project developments. We have 7 townhomes, 12 condos, and 14 townhomes in the area that we're in the process of right now.
Anybody else? Okay, last question. Why should the town of Fraser partner with you on this project?
Oh, that's a hard one. I got my pretty face, not gonna do. I believe that we bring, a good partnership to Fraser. We understand the needs. I've been in plenty of these town halls, many. And I can tell you, some of them are pretty challenging. And for what I can tell you here, and I'm not saying that, just smoking stuff out of my butt, to be honest with you. I can tell that you guys mean, you want this, we want it. We definitely want it. I want to personally, like I know that this is personal for Will, we want to help. We want to share our profits and our experiences.
We believe in this project, and that is at its core. We kind of, whether it's self-funding or bringing in the grants, everything is to reach a moral integrity as we work through the process. And it'll take a balancing act of these factors throughout. And we think we will be great partners in problem solving those things and getting you the best results.
I think it's mainly because we live here. We know the need. We suffer because of the need for it. The 80 years that we have are nowhere near enough. And we're invested in this community. We're raising our family here. And this is one way that we can make an impact that is really, it's going to be really special to share that with our child, with our grandchildren, and see the longevity through.
We've lost friends from housing. We've lost friends because we try to create housing. It's a lot more painful losing friends because there isn't housing for people here. And we want to make that difference. And it's painful, like literally and figuratively losing friends in every sense of the word, because they don't have the housing. And we know we can do it. And we hope you do too.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. Any,
Thanks, guys.
any? Good. Okay, we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for the workforce housing that you created.
Thank you.
Right there on the front.
Now would be a good time to go.
Yeah.
We're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back after that.
Okay, we are officially brought back from our break. Next up is Elmington. And just so you know, the basics that we're telling all of the presenters tonight, you're gonna have, there's two parts to this. There's the first 15-minute your presentation of the questions, the 4 questions that we sent to you. And then the next 30 minutes will be 5 questions. The same 5 questions are being asked of everybody. And there might be follow-up questions that the board asked you after hearing your answers to those 5. So time management, and we'll give you a 2-minute warning at the end, prior to the end of each session. So if you're ready, you can go ahead and let us know who you are and start your presentation.
All right, let me share screen. I think we're live. We'll go to full screen here. Maybe. Well, let's stick here for now. Well, thank you for having us. My name is Ryan Tobin. I'm with Elmington Capital. I am Denver based, but our corporation is nationwide in terms of our pursuits in affordable housing and helping out different communities. So we have a pretty expansive footprint, mostly through the southwest or southeast, sorry, and I'm the westward explorer now. I spent 15 years with the Denver Housing Authority, working in many capacities, but leading the development team there and figuring out solutions for affordable housing throughout my career. So really excited to be here. I'm joined with Elena Scott with Norris Design, Kevin Beccarelli with JVA, and then online I have Nathan Roseman and Amy Vance with our architectural team. We were very thoughtful in selecting a team that we thought was appropriate to solve some of the challenges, and we really appreciated the RFP. It looks like you had put a lot of thought into it, because we know that affordable housing is an extremely challenging environment for us, in particular amongst this current market. A lot of things have changed for us in the last 6 months overall, but a commitment like the town of Fraser and what you put together gives you a better opportunity than most. And I can tell you, I work in a lot of different areas. And right now you have the tools put together to be successful if you find and identify the right partner. And that's why we're here, is because we know we can be that partner for you, and we want to get to know you and talk about the project. We have a few slides to talk about kind of our approach and what we've done in terms of how we think we can solve some of the challenges that are in front of this body. And this is one piece of how we get there, but really we've looked at this as a hand-in-hand a collaboration, like anything, both with the community stakeholders, with the body here that's going to make the selection, and then ultimately with our partnership and our team members that we brought to the table today. But there's a lot more that goes into that, and that's some of these slides that we put together to try to demonstrate that. And I know that we had several questions that were put out there, so I'd be happy to address those specifically. We did not put those in the immediate slideshow because I knew we had some Q&A that were responses. So I wasn't quite sure that that was the specific point of the presentation, is to address those 4 questions, but I would be more than happy to address those squarely through this as we get through some of these first introductory materials, if that works. Okay. So who we are, Elmington Capital Group, I mentioned just briefly. My partner here, Hunter Nelson, is out of Nashville. He's not unable to join us today. But they had 2 closings today in the Carolinas, so they had a long and busy week to get there. So he sends his apologies. But we're a national leader in affordable housing. Much like my work at Denver Housing Authority, we became a national leader because of the innovation and our ability to solve problems through this process, because it does take a lot of different hurdles along the way. And sometimes that experience really helps you know which hurdles you need to jump, so you're not moving forward and backwards in that process. But nonetheless, you know, that's some of the things that we want to be able to talk to you about, and how we plan and prepare to solve those challenges moving through this current market and these conditions. But historically, we've done a lot of LIHTC deals, low-income housing tax credits, which we proposed as part of the phase 2. But they are very competitive here in Colorado right now specifically. And some of those take many years. You know, I've probably done 20 low-income housing tax credit deals here in Colorado. Mostly in Denver, and also one is one of the examples we showed where we worked with the Gunnison Valley Regional Housing Authority in a mountain community. So this is not our first mountain experience. Certainly with Norris and the planning and entitlement side and helping support us overall, they have a tremendous amount of experience. And then knowing there's certain civil challenges as well, we wanted to make sure we're working with as many local folks as we can, both through the early design and process side of things, but then also when we get into the build side and the constructability and working with those local vendors and contractors so that we can make this a community investment as well. So those are some things that we'll build on and through that momentum. But nonetheless, we focus on all kinds of buildings and different types. We found what we believe is to be the building that's most suitable for the timeframes and for the opportunity and what we believe we have identified an equity source to help bring this to the finish line ultimately. And that's what we want to give you the assurances is that we have the capability to bring this to the finish line, which is really challenging in this market. And we can dive into that if there's some more questions on that. But this was the project I mentioned to you just briefly in Crested Butte. Working with Bozar in the community, I think we had as many as 30 community meetings, and some of those got spread out over a year, but it really wants to be a collaboration, and that's how we're successful, as long as we have that collaboration and have that buy-in from the community at this stage so that we can try to meet some of the timelines, because housing is needed now, and housing development takes us years to do. And so we want to hit the ground running with you in that participation if we are selected. So just wanted to give you some input on kind of some of the product, because every product fits differently and every design and every vernacular works differently for different communities. And we want to know what's appropriate here. And we've done some of that study initially, but now we're looking to be involved more with that process as well. But some highlighted items that you've talked about that are important to you: timely schedule, which is obviously an extremely important item in anything, the desired outcomes, and then how we're going to manage that process with you all as well. But in the schedule and other things that are important to what we're trying to achieve as an outcome, hosting community meetings, engaging in that design process, listening, more importantly than anything, is something that we want to hear first before we can really jump into this, full steam ahead, because we've just taken this as a qualification and we've put a lot of work into studying that, but we haven't had any input. So we're not married to this program. We know that can evolve through that participation and really look forward to it. And then our debt and equity sourcing, we have the ability to bring in institutional capital in conjunction with that. And our phase one is a non-LIHTC approach. So it is not tied to a competitive arena, and it's not chasing all of the limited resources of tax credit equity for phase one to give us a springboard into the opportunity for phase two, which we envision being planned in concert with the overall site. So this is not one versus the other. This is the whole program, and then the timing is how we bring together the overall resources to accomplish our goals. And then ultimately tax credits are important, and knowing tax credit market and having the relationship with CHAFA and understanding how the statewide pool is utilized. Those are things that I know very well, because that's where I've spent the last almost 20 years of my career working just here in Colorado to know those resources and how to get to them. So we want to be able to add that expertise to this team for you as well. And then the desired outcomes, most important for us, right, is what we're going to get out of this. And we think we can achieve some density that I think will help generations to come here with growth. And we can talk at length of how density can be a benefit to the town and how it can grow and where that workforce is needed to help that growth and prosperity as well. We know that there's a lot of local and state funding, not only the resources that you've committed, but there's also additional resources becoming available. And that's always a timely thing. This is maybe an unprecedented time for some of the grant resources that are available for low-income housing and affordable and workforce housing. And so we want to chase those dollars to make the best product that we can. And we think that there's a very strong opportunity with the type of local support you've already committed to accomplish those goals as well. We're big fans of the environmental stewardship. In fact, Elaine and I were talking, and one of the reasons we go back as far as 15 years is we did a sustainability park as a pilot demonstration years before it was such a buzzword. But we're committed to sustainability and achieving those goals. And some of our building designs we can talk about, and how we can keep our budgets manageable and make sure that they're environmentally friendly as well. And we reduce the amount of carbon, and we also manage energy consumption through all the way through the end user, which is important through education as well. We do want to try to accomplish some economies of scale. These deals take years, and we want to be able to manage that and have an impact. A small 9% application can get you about 40 or 50 units right now. And that doesn't have the impact I think that you're trying to accomplish, which is why we have proposed density that could accomplish 200 or more units based on the DU per acre and the existing zoning. So those are some evolutions. The first site plan was 144 units. And then we've got some options on phase 2 that could accomplish higher density or lower density based on, what you want to accomplish. But, we're not averse to building for sale if that's a desired outcome. We're not averse to building mixed use if there's community rooms and other things that need to be engaged into a 9% application, which we believe would be a good application going into the 2024 round with the plans and preparation we would do over the next 12 months to do that. So all exciting things and opportunities that we see, but really there's a whole bunch of things that we can get out on the plate to have as a discussion ultimately, and then upon selection and an award, that's where we would really look to do that engagement and move things along as quickly as possible so that we can have that opportunity to bring the resources together. And then ultimately management, with a great team. I will be the principal overseeing this effort, so you will see a lot of me. We'll have other team members engage, but nonetheless, we've got the resources both at corporate level and then here local that we can manage this process for you with our selected team, and everybody's excited and engaged to be a part of this process. So we're really looking forward to that as well. And like I said, we're really looking at this a long-term partnership. So when we invest in these assets, we like to hold these assets. We want to make sure that they're affordable for a long period of time, if not in perpetuity. And so those are all important aspects that we want to make sure that you have the assurances that that's our commitment as well. And so we really are looking forward to being a long-term partner here. I touched on it just briefly, but it's execution and delivery. It's going to be a big challenge for us overall. And it's not necessarily for a challenge for all of us to solve that, but it's really just managing the markets and the expectations. And since we're doing this at a lot of levels, we know how to solve and jump through those hurdles, as I mentioned, that can get us over these challenges that we know are out there. And we have the bandwidth as a company then to support these larger type opportunities. So we're prepared to make those commitments as well. I won't, oh yeah, go ahead. Elaine's going to talk to us about our kind of project plan. So go ahead.
But then they can't hear me here. I have to follow Ed's instructions. All right, everybody. Norris Designer Planners and Landscape Architects. I'm based in our Frisco office, and I've been in the mountains for over 15 years. And over 70% of the things that I do are related to community workforce housing. As a mountain community member, I'm most passionate about connecting with the stakeholders and the residents of Fraser, the business community. Anybody who is in desperate need of creating this asset for Fraser is somebody that we would like to talk to. We have a very robust process identified in the plan, and then also on this board, if you have a chance to take a look at it. This site is connected in your 2017 downtown strategic plan, and looking at how this site connects into downtown and how this site will actually have the character and the essence of the community here. That's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve that unique sense of place that will be specifically Fraser and not something that was developed anywhere else. And we get that from talking to the people that live here, that work here, that call this place home. We start with you and try to help to identify the stakeholders that are going to be most important. We especially like to talk to people that might have issues with this or have a lot of questions. We consider ourselves educators, as people that have worked in affordable workforce housing, attainable, all the different words that we use to talk about the spectrum of just homes that we'd like to build in this location. We want to get in touch with all the people and help them to understand the process, what we're delivering, what it means, and how this asset will help them live here for future generations and to come. So depending on where we are in the plan, whether it's at the beginning of the conceptual design phase or moving into the major site plan review with the town and public hearings, we've identified different stages of outreach for each one of those. It starts out with a lot of connection with stakeholders. And so we'd really love to get in with you and figure out what tools work best for this community. We know that if we want to get in quickly, the weather also helps us with what we should be doing, going to community events, coming to people, not just asking them to come to a meeting, and also looking at other languages and cultural assets that we can bring in to make sure that everybody is heard that needs to have a voice at the table. So very excited about outreach. Very excited about Fraser and what you've been doing with the arts, and just seeing how the connectivity and the multimodal has moved forward over the past several years. So would just really love to be a part of that, and I can answer more questions about this later.
Thanks, guys. You have about 2 minutes left for your presentation.
Great, thank you. You know, initially we started looking at the opportunities and the challenges. So clearly the opportunities outweigh the challenges, but the challenges are things that we're gonna have to work together to do that. We've identified those at a high level for conversation pieces, but you know, the location Elena touched on, it's an important location. We want to make sure that that importance is carried through that project design and that building site plan, because it is connected. We don't want it to be the housing project at the end of the block. It wants to be integral to the overall community, and that's where that connectivity will come together. The parks and open space obviously is a huge priority. In fact, it's one of the top priorities in affordable housing is to have access to parks and open space. So that will be an emphasis on what we're doing as we're serving families, having tot lots and having that ability to have safety involved as well, knowing that we've got roads and infrastructure that are going to go on this. That's one of our challenges that we'll also, you know, look to solve through this process. We touched on sustainability. You know, the sky's the limit there. I'm working on a net zero project right now because of its opportunity, and I've done several LEED Platinum projects, so I know what's good and bad about them. I've tested them for 15 years, so we've seen what works and what doesn't, what operating costs can go wrong, and so I have that history, and that's the stuff that through the science we're going to apply into this building and into the overall proposal, so that we manage that well and that we have the impact we want with the sustainability measures that we're accomplishing. So just touch on a couple of those challenges and opportunities, and we've shared the site plan, but we have it more here to talk about. We're happy to jump into some questions and answer what you have on your topic list.
Great, thank you. First question is, do you anticipate any ongoing or upcoming projects your firm is working on that may conflict with capacity or resource challenges with Victoria Village?
Well, we're always working on other projects. But why we picked Fraser and why we really like Fraser ultimately is that it fits perfectly into our schedule. When we're pursuing tax credits, particularly where I've mentioned the 9% credit, we think is a opportunistic time here for Fraser to go for that. That's in our pipeline and in our bandwidth so that we're not looking to pursue it anywhere else. So we're not submitting multiple applications. We pick our number ones that we want to go after and we want to work with. And so in this instance, we've already decided to move off of other projects in the event of this award to make sure we have that capacity. And out here, out west, under my leadership, I have my first staff member joining me Monday as well. Very talented individual that's joining us from my former employer at Denver Housing Authority. So we've got that ability, and then we outsource with other consultants as needed. But I don't see any impact to our ability to manage this process or have conflicting projects that would affect our capacity.
Thank you. Follow-up questions? No. Next question is, how have you or your team facilitated a master planning process before? Two-part question. How would you collaborate with the town through this process? You kind of touched on this earlier. But...
Well, that's great. And we can dovetail on that one, and Lena can maybe
Sure.
talk about some of our other master planning work that was successful as well. So.
Absolutely. You know, when we talk about complexity and scale and managing a process or a project of this size, this is something that we have a lot of experience doing, not only in bigger markets like Ryan mentioned. You know, Ryan's built over 3,500 units himself. So no small feat, but together we worked on the Mariposa project, which required replacement of existing residents and then building housing and then moving them in. So when you're talking about like how challenging certain things can be from master planning, we've really together done some of those things that are incredibly difficult and done them successfully. And there is 13 languages there spoken. So from a challenge perspective, I think that the key thing is always going to be messaging and establishing our vision from day one. That comes with working with the community. On our board up here, when we talk about investigation and research, you have already done so much work on this property and on this site in terms of the floodplain and the wetlands and the road extensions that we want to see and where the water and the, all the utility lines are. We have a really great position from infrastructure. And so I think what's really important is getting that buy-in on what this place wants to be and how this place creates and connects in with the rest of Fraser. So we start the process with investigation and research that does involve probably some focus groups, a bunch of stakeholder interviews. We've done potlucks, we've done things at schools, we've done anything and everything. Winter carnivals with tents outside. And it was even more interesting during COVID doing outreach. So we're really glad to be in a place now where we can meet indoors and talk to people. So we start with investigation and research. We come into a community and say, what does this place want to be? We know these are the things that are going to set us up. Here's what our zoning is. Here's what's allowed. Here's what our, master plans are saying. Here's what the need is. And try to draw all the things together. From there, then we move into conceptual drawing, and then we do another round of outreach. And all along the way, talking with the board and staff and our guiding leadership in that way. The most important thing about the outreach is that when we get to a position where you're trying to decide if you're going to approve something or not, that that we've done all the work, that it's really easy for you and you're not having to deal with a lot of issues. We know we're not going to get consensus from everybody in outreach process. That's just not how it works, and especially not in small towns. But what we can do is check off every box that you have within what can help you get us there, and us working together and listening to the community on how we get there together. Once we have those designs, it's, from the master plan perspective, then we're getting into phasing and, how many units are we delivering when and what time frame and permitting. So as Ryan said, we're looking to bring some phases in concurrently. So we'd probably be master planning all the project at one time through the planning review process. But doing a ton of outreach at the onset, and we'd want to hit that hard, like right at the beginning of 2023 to keep that moving. I don't know if I answered enough, but it's very exciting, and it would be great to get to work with the community to do it.
Yeah, I think the Mariposa project that we worked on as we built the team around that when we hired Norris ended up winning one of the top 10 neighborhoods in the country from the American Planning Association. So
congratulations.
That collaboration is important. It's really a team, to do this. So I wouldn't tell you that I'm the one person that's solving this. I want to help lead this team because I have great experience in leadership, but that experience means surround myself with talented people so that we can be able to respond accordingly and be available for you as needed.
Great. Thank you. Follow-up questions from the board?
Well, that's still Katie's question. Have you guys looked at any commercial or daycare centers inside the housing project?
We haven't specifically figured out the commercial space and the needs of the community. I can tell you that I've planned it a bunch. I think it's great in affordable housing. We've used finance different aspects of this, and had the Denver preschool program as one of the tenants in a building that I built for them. And there's ways to leverage new markets tax credits, which I have a depth of experience on. It really helps us leverage that capital. It's one thing to build the box, but more important is who's going to fill that space and how does it need to perform for those folks. So if you do have operators, if you have ECE needs, particularly in the LIHTC project where we've identified that could have the commercial space, we would love to commit to something like that and work with you to solve for that issue.
Thank you. Can you discuss previous capital stacks you've used for affordable housing projects to meet AMI goals, and how effective were they?
Well, every capital stack is unique. I think the last project that I closed had 9 sources of inputs into this project, whether it was the state, whether it was the local, whether it was federal tax credits, Hope 6 grants, or own equity inputs. That's the unique thing of kind of the subsidy layering opportunities and, developing, having a bandwidth like we've done over the years with so many projects and different experiences. There's so many ways to solve, but we got to first figure out what we're solving for, and then we can go and solve for it. And so every project I've done over the years was sometimes creative genius or luck, but together having luck and being good help. And so we'd rather be lucky sometimes than good, but being good makes you lucky. So, and that just comes with experience. So every one of them has unique resources. And the most recent one that we closed on was a big bond issue that the city and county of Denver lended us their credit to enhance that. So we issued a bond on assignment of a mill levy from the county of Denver and bonded that out as a housing authority and generate $138 million in proceeds to go build and fund GAP and to acquire land for the future. And so that's probably one of the largest single transactions that I've worked on. But that was born through the development office and the inspiration and the leadership that said, we're willing to take on some risks to help solve for our challenges. And that's now coming to the head and being projects delivered as a result of that bond initiative just several years ago. So, but each problem is unique, and I understand tax revenue and debt structuring and equity partners. So all of those we bring to the table, whether it's a CDFI fund or some short-term mezz debt that we got to do to bridge some gap, so there's lots of ways for us to do that and get very creative. Once we figure out what it is we want to go try to solve ultimately, but that's one of my favorite parts, is solving for affordable housing issues.
One thing also to add to that is that Ryan didn't mention is just as a very experienced developer, he understands that you don't want to take on a lot of risk. And somebody like Elmington has that capability and can bring those assets to the table and those resources to the table that are going to help get that project to the finish line. Also, Ryan can talk about this stuff and also fit into a group of people that have no idea what he's talking about. And that's really important when you're starting a project like this, because that finance world is ultimately what gets us to this vacant land into a real community that's part of Fraser. He could talk about this for days and hours. And there's so many different ways that the funding sources could come together, but having that experience and also the network to bring those resources to the table is really, really valuable.
Thank you. Follow-up questions?
Yeah, one of the things that concerned me about your proposal was that phase one was based off of an 80% to 120% AMI for the residents. And I think that the housing authority up here has kind of defined that we need housing for people in that 60% and under range. It didn't sound like from your answer that there was like, it didn't seem like you were overly confident in being able to get down to that level. And I certainly understand being conservative with numbers, but yeah.
Sure. Well, we did commit to serving lower AMIs through the tax credit program as phase two, which is, to time out that, so can we solve for lower AMIs? The answer is absolutely. But right now, even hot off the press now, we have a construction budget. I mean, literally we had it bid out already, and I'd be happy to share it with you. So we have an escalating market with rising interest rate environment that has no certain future out there. So with that being said, I'd say construction costs have probably trended up 10% annually for the last 2 years. So we're in a different world in that regard. And so by going to a lower AMI, we just have to supplement that leverage with other capital resources. That's really the trick to it. We would still be able to rent to 60% AMRs, but can we get the rent low enough to be able to borrow enough bank debt to really make that equity investment that needs to come in here? And we're talking, $20+ million of equity we have to raise for phase one alone. Unfortunately, I can't tell you that there's a Hope 6 grant, much like we had fortunate ability to track in Denver as a larger municipality with a whole bunch of public housing and distressed placing. You don't have a $30 million grant that we can go win, but the state of Colorado does have a $138 million fund that has a NOFA out now with LOIs due next week. Now there's part of the solution right there is much like you did attract funding for the land, so it's a gap based on where we can bring institutional capital into a project, because they won't invest unless there's at least a reasonable rate of return. And that's what we know as well as anybody. But to get to that 60 AMI, we're just filling some more gap. That's what the 9% program is really designed for. So I would say that it's absolutely possible. Is it underwritten at this point? Well, again, we're in an early qualification stage, and I can rerun the pro forma 4 ways for you today if we needed to. And that's part of this. We got to figure out what it is we want. And if it is a desire because you have a school teacher now or a fireman now that needs housing, and we got to get that rent to 60% AMI, can I solve for that? Absolutely. We think we can solve for that in the site to make sure it's a well-balanced mixed income community, and maybe 120 AMI works. It's going to be fundamental for us to have a partnership with your county housing authority to take advantage of the tax exemption that's under state statute. because that is another fundamental that we'll have to make sure. We've tried to reach out to them as well and unsuccessful to this time, but I certainly think through the partnership with Fraser and others that that'll be something that we'll bring up to early discussions as well. But there's absolutely a way to solve for that.
And I think this is Ryan, this is Nathan. I think you could also have the scheduling of the 9% for next round of applications, not being until February of 2024. That pushes the schedule out. And in the best effort to deliver housing at an 80% AMI as fast as possible is really looking at a phase one that does not go through a formal LIHTC application immediately, or waiting for that application until winter of 2024.
That's right. I mean, your schedule did drive a lot of this non-LIHTC approach. And we've recently just closed a couple of these. Colorado just, created the Middle Income Housing Authority as well. So there's new acknowledgement that this workforce housing, this missing middle, is a huge priority for us that we really haven't addressed yet as a state. And so that's where one of these equity funds that we're working with has the philanthropic arm to be able to take on these initiatives. And so we're approaching this in multiple jurisdictions right now. So this is really a capitalized business relationship that we have to be able to develop this project now. But nonetheless, there's ways for us to solve for other concerns that we might address through this process.
Thank you. Good. Anybody else on that one? Okay, next is we recognize there are many current challenges with the labor market, supply challenges, and material prices. Can you describe your firm's capacity to navigate these challenges to deliver a project on time and on budget?
Well, I think this is a really important piece, not only us managing it, but we've identified what I believe to be is one of the best general contractors that builds affordable housing in Colorado. Icota Construction and I have been building projects for well over a decade. They're the only firm to date that has taken on, through the growth of their company, almost an exclusive relationship of building affordable housing and solving for that. And there's unique things that they do to approach constructability, sequencing, logistics plans. In fact, I think we already have a logistics plan and we have a full budget drafted up, working with these guys. But self-performance is a big piece. You got to peel the onion in construction to manage costs, where if you hire one turnkey general contractor and subs from there, fully bonded out as an owner and have very little involvement, you don't know what you're getting back. He gets marked up 3-4 times along the way. So the way we've been solving for it of recent, and these guys have been underpricing other people by 10 to 15% on current RFP bids as we've been tracking them. And we have a very trusted relationship. So it's having a very capable and willing participant as a general contractor, because they're going to manage that sub pool base and they're willing to break it out and work on self-perform, provide direct buy acquisition of vendors and other supplies so that you're not getting that middleman markup on every project, and then really diving in. So that's an important recipe. And that's why we've selected Icota to join us on this. In fact, the ownership from Icota lives here in Grand County as well. So he's very thoughtful and has been up here several times already, identifying the local sub community, talking with how we're going to get things here that aren't here, and to manage that, and looking at employee housing to staff his firm and the individuals he'll need here to manage the project. So we're well ahead of this. We know your timeline. It's very aggressive, I'll tell you that. But if anybody can pull it off, we're already one step ahead, or we're committed to get to that path as quickly as possible. And that's through this engagement with this team I put together for Fraser.
Thank you. Any other follow-up questions? Last question. Why should the town of Fraser partner with you on this project?
Well, I think you have to pick someone that you ultimately can feel and that you're going to trust them, and we want to earn your trust through that. And we want to prove that up, which is why we've worked so hard to put together what we think is a creative approach to solving some of the challenges outlined in the RFP. And then I would just say that if you would follow up with references, my commitment, my word is my bond. And these are things that I'm very passionate about. I've been doing this a lot, and it's something that wakes me up in the morning and I finished at the end of the night. I have a little break in there because I got 4 kids, but nonetheless, this is what I wake up to and go to bed to every night because it really is a passion. Because I ultimately, through the years at the housing authority, I really started to appreciate handing those keys over to people that couldn't afford to live there otherwise. And so I take a lot of pride in being able to find these solutions and be able to achieve those outcomes. And so, and I think this whole team collectively has that buy-in, and which is why they've signed up with us and said, we're committed to this. And we've put a lot of work into this leading up to here, but that's just the beginning. And I think that commitment we're hoping shows here today, and it will not be something that diminishes here in time. It'll only get ramped up for you. And I assure you that.
Can I add more?
Yeah.
All right. I know that, a lot of Ryan's experiences in Denver, but a lot of Kevin and I is all in the mountains. And Kevin and I think our last affordable project together was in Newcastle, actually, and was senior affordable for a nonprofit. And it turned out really beautifully. Lots of topography, something we don't have on this site, which is shocking because we're in the center of the Fraser Valley. Choosing this team is choosing somebody that's going to be able to get in with your community and establish those trusting relationships, working with people that know how to relate to what we deal with in a mountain environment. The smallest town I'm working in right now is Yampa. It's a population of 400. So each community has a different flavor and what's going to work for them. And that's going to come to what the AMIs are in our first phase, to what is this park? If it is a park, is it art? Is it expanding some of the, the beautiful things you've already been creating with the community? But it's all those little things, and we're not going to come in and, act like we know all the answers yet, because that has to be developed cohesively with all of you. It's a collaboration. But it's people that have done a lot of this. One of the master plans that we're actually implementing a child care center on right now is in Silverthorne, and that's the Smith Ranch, and that's a 60-acre project. So obviously a little bit bigger, but we're about to sell out of our last 4 sale homes and just got the 9% award for our workforce apartments. So truly building out a mixed income community. And it did take time, but it also didn't, because of the strong working relationship with the town council and with the staff. And so because we have that experience of doing these types of projects in all different, jigsaw puzzles of ways that are going to work for that specific community, I think that's why you should choose this team.
And I would just simply add, and I surely don't want to end here, but being in the community for upwards of close to 20 years now too, we do understand on the civil engineering side of things, right? The roads, the sewer, the wetlands that are there, all those sorts of things I think are very important, and important to be contiguous to make a clean tie-in, right? We understand all the public works infrastructure very well here in the town of Fraser. So with that, but I don't want to end more.
Always in that civil. All right, can we ask a question of you since you're out of questions?
How much time do we have left?
We have 7 minutes.
All right.
So you can.
You can?
You can
Okay.
try. We may not answer, but.
Okay. Okay. So in your own words, if anybody, you don't have to all raise your hand at once. This project is a success when blank. Katie, you look ready.
Not really.
I think this project is already a success.
Awesome.
Our community we acknowledged what our community needed, and this board is moving forward with trying to help solve that problem. And so I think it is already a success, and that we've purchased the property and we're moving forward with it. So.
Great. It's a good way to start.
For me, it would be that we have a good mixture of housing, especially for young people that are first coming to the ski area, having their first jobs, kids that grow up here, being able to move out of their houses, people that have their restaurants and coffee shops open, have enough staff for them, so the owners aren't working until midnight or 2 a.m. That would be a success for me, that we actually hit the goals of, getting at least 200 units on the project built, and good people in there. I know we're shooting for the AMI number all the time, but I'm still looking for quality people. That would be a success for me.
Thanks, Parnell.
For me? On
Yeah.
time, on budget. That's your town manager. We have requirements for the grant. And I mirror what Mary said, this has been a priority for the town for some time now. Affordable workforce housing. It's the number one priority for the town, and we've been very fortunate and able to achieve this Operation Turnkey grant. Thanks to Michael Brack for doing that. This piece of land has been sitting there undeveloped forever. And
Millions of years.
years. And it never worked because price of the land, the wetlands, they do the due diligence and they realize I can't develop this. I can't make this work. I can't make this pencil out so that it's profitable for us. Us giving the grant, the $3 million grant for this land, this $3.8 million purchase. We see the wetlands as an immense
Asset. Yeah.
It complements what the town focuses on the open space and preserving that connection with nature. So it's a great amenity for us. We take some of the risk out from the developer side by able to bring the land to the table.
Mhm.
So I agree. We are already seeing success on this so far. So seeing that first house or first unit go up. Maybe, yeah.
When local businesses have near full employment of people that are not living in their cars or in tents and can come to work rested.
I think it's a unique opportunity for us to sort of tie the town together. Fraser, and I mean, I haven't been here as long as some of the other people, but it seems like sort of a hodgepodge of construction and buildings and residents, and it's just kind of all over the place. And have that right downtown, walkable to all the businesses is really going to help the town grow and develop. I think it's a great asset, and I agree. We've moved very quickly. We closed on the property, in May? And here we are, settling on a developer to move forward. I mean, it is moving very quickly.
Time. 3 minutes. You guys good?
You don't have to keep going.
Anybody else want to say? Okay, we really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thanks.
having
Nice
me here.
presentation.
Yeah, thanks.
Very nice. All right.
Do you know Gary Wilkinson?
I like your
Oh, yeah.
layout.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah. Gary was my neighbor.
Was he?
So since we have a couple more minutes on that phase one, what's the plan on the buildings? Like your building heights generally in that, in your thoughts? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of expenses when you go higher for the fire department and and elevators and stuff. Okay.
Okay, we have one more presentation, just so that.
I like that, I like the layout, the design. Really nice. Thank you.
They don't have any more free. 3 minutes and 1 minute ago. I just kind of stopped for from my job.
Bye, thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah. That's a lot of time.
Yeah. I'll get you guys some. Great, thank you.
Rob, how you doing?
Hey, good for now. How are you?
Good, man. Good to see you, Troy. How are you, sir? Good, man. You back? I'm great. How about you? I can't believe you have a night off. This time I have the laptop.
Okay, just so you guys know, the ground rules. So there's the first 15 minutes of, there's two sessions to this 15 minutes and then 30 minutes. The first is your presentation to the board. And then the second is we have 5 questions. And that's the same 5 questions we've asked every presenter tonight. And if there's follow-up questions, we'll ask those at the same time or as we're moving along. So are we waiting on somebody to?
Yeah. 15 minutes for the presentation. Right.
That's
15
correct.
minutes for the presentation and then 30 minutes for the follow-up questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we could ask one thing, this is being recorded. Plus, we also have several people online listening in. They won't be able to hear you unless you're standing by the microphone at the podium. So make sure don't answer from your seats. Please come forward and present your answers. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, there they are. Todd, there's the COF town hall Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Do you want ice? No ice.
Makes sense. Fraser.
Yeah. Yeah, I made myself hot water.
Good. Password?
Icebox or the cat.
Then I can join the Zoom, so I can get you to our website there using Chrome. Just start. Yeah. And can you admit him real quick? Councilman?
Let's put that. Oh, and I can-
Yeah. Great. I think you're good. I think then you can just click on the slide and. Back. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So it's late. Thanks for your indulgence but more importantly, we appreciate the opportunity to be here and present our qualifications for planning and development services for Victoria Village. And first of all, my name's Todd Moore. I'm one of the managing members of Mountain Affordable Housing Development with my partner, Matt Ginsberg. We've assembled a team to provide the services to make Victoria Village a tremendous success. And we will introduce the team to you here this evening, tonight. We have a presentation it's about 20 minutes, 22 minutes. I realize it's late. We were targeting 15, but we were trying to put together responsive slides that were really geared towards addressing the questions that you all raised, getting ready. But what I would ask is if there would be a preference, we're more than happy to entertain questions as we go through the material rather than waiting for the end. Otherwise, we can just kind of motor through it and address questions at the end. So feel free to engage in questions as we go through it. So our agenda is really pretty straightforward. We wanted to provide some brief introductions for our team, for those that may not know it, everybody or anybody, talk about their qualifications just ever so slightly. Then we wanted to introduce our approach and methodology for community engagement, stakeholder involvement, master planning, and present the initial conceptual site plan that we'd put together as part of the RFQ response. We would address some of the estimated project costs at this preliminary stage. Happy to answer questions about that, but at least you'll understand where they came from. Then we'd move into some of the financial strategies, how we plan to finance the project, and different phasing for that, followed by challenges, opportunities, and lastly, ensuring success. What we plan to do to make sure that project gets on track and stays on track and is something that we're all proud of. So first of all, we have Jeff Vogel with us from Vogel and Associates. They're our esteemed partner for master planning. They specialize in, not just land planning, but also real estate feasibility, landscape architecture, and development consulting. Jeff will present the conceptual site plan and as well as talk about the master plan itself and how we will approach that. We also have Eric Smith with Eric Smith and Associates. Eric's firm has been founded in 1973. They've designed over 900 affordable housing units to date. So we're looking forward to doing that and continuing on in that vein. We also have Matt Ginsberg, who's one of my partners and also from Calstead. He and the folks from SB Clark Companies bring our project financing arm to the table. They specialize in both public financing, which is the SB Clark Companies, and private placement for financing. Calstead has placed about 40 to 50 billion in terms of syndicated financial transactions. SB Clark has been involved. They were founded in 2001. And since that time, they've done over 125 different public financing applications and awards. So they bring a lot of depth in that regard. Most of it focused here in the state of Colorado, but they'll have a chance to address any questions along those lines. We also have representatives from Big Valley Construction, who's been in the Valley building different types of projects for the last almost 25 years. They bring a local presence for the building. So they ensure that we have the right resources. We have the trades, we have the vendors that are able to prioritize this project to get the work done on schedule. They've been here and they've built multiple different types of projects, whether it's multifamily, residential, mixed use, commercial resident, custom residential and so forth. But they bring a variety of construction and they're local for us here. And then last is me, Todd Moore. I'm one of the managing partners for Mountain Affordable Housing Development, as well as a principal with Wyndham Project Services. I've got 35 years of industry experience and have been responsible, involved with the development and delivery of nearly 300 capital projects over my career, and specialize in risk management, development management, project delivery, project controls, all things that are necessary to make sure that the project gets set up right and stays on track. So with that, I will turn it over to Jeff if we can to talk about the master planning process and the conceptual site plan. Thanks.
Good evening, Jeff Vogel with Vogel and Associates. As Todd mentioned, we've had the privilege to work here in the Valley and in Fraser for the last 25 years, which has been great, including the Rendezvous Master Plan project that we continue to work on since the beginning. But we're very excited about this, about the Victoria Village project, and the site is pretty remarkable, very dynamic, provides a lot of opportunities in several regards. But what we did is, we were kind of not only were we inspired by the property, but also, some of the objectives and goals that Fraser's had in terms of the downtown core, in terms of the future of developing, the town out. And so before we put pencil to paper, we really sat down and tried to evaluate, how could we really advance these goals and policies, and what we did is established 6 integrated planning principles. And one was, identify and sustain green infrastructure. And I'll talk about these in the plan as we go forward. Sustain green infrastructure, obviously St. Louis Creek corridor, the wetland complex is pretty awesome that transcends through the site. So that's an important consideration. And as I mentioned, the jurisdictional wetlands that are located in the central core of the property is terrific in several regards. And so protecting those and really celebrating those is also an important consideration. Clustered community planning, mixed use planning, creating a master plan that is multidimensional, not just two-dimensional. Sometimes when people think about affordable housing, workforce housing, it's sometimes thought of as a two-dimensional project. We see this as more of a multi-dimensional project. Diversity of housing types, providing segmentation for a variety of age groups and income levels is an important consideration. Establishing these mixed-use centers and neighborhood focal points, and those can be active areas, those can be passive areas, is also really an important principle that we instilled in the plan. And then community connectivity, not only within the project itself, but how's it going to connect to the context around it. And as Fraser, and again, being able to see how Fraser continues to evolve the downtown, I think this is a very important project in that regard. See, there it is. It's up on the screens. I think you can see that now. So, as I said, we established these planning principles. A lot of them are inspired by the property itself. We started to look at, probably the larger considerations, that being US 40 located on the west, County Road 8 on the north, and then Park Avenue on the south. A large central feature is the St. Louis Creek corridor and the wetlands complex that's located in the center there, the large green space that you see. That too is a super important organizing feature for the property. The other thing about the property that's really unique, also that we took into consideration in our plan, was the grade differentiation, because US 40 is high. It kind of descends obviously to the east a little bit, which really creates an opportunity to do something interesting in terms of the edge along 40 and some of the access points. So what we did is, as you can see, we're preserving the St. Louis Creek corridor, the wetlands complex, We're using that as really a central feature that would not only be for this project, but obviously would have a strong connection to the US 40 corridor, and then also to the east and a potential connections to County Road 8 and Park Avenue to the south. So, maintaining that, but even enhancing that. We spent a lot of time walking around out there, and I think there's some things that we can really do that would elevate that corridor, if you will. The other thing that we looked at was connectivity, as I mentioned, vehicular connectivity, pedestrian connectivity. So what we're showing here is a north-south connector street. We call it Victoria Village Way. They connect from County Road 8 to Park Avenue to the south. Creating a little bit of depth to the town is always important because, we have US 40, obviously, which is a major thoroughfare, but creating a little bit more of, I'd say, a pedestrian or neighborhood street that parallels that, we think is really an important component of this. And then the other component is creating that architectural edge along US 40. I mean, you guys have been Town of Fraser has been doing some great things with their downtown, with some of the new buildings that are being built or unconstructed. You're creating that nice edge along there. So we think there's a really great opportunity to do that with Victoria Village. And then, as I said, as one of our other planning principles is segmentation, diversity of housing types. And what we have here is, currently we have 5 different housing types. We have multifamily condos, we have the dormitories, which is illustrated up at the northwest corner in Building H. That's what that building would be. Building 8 would be apartments. And then the buildings that are surrounding along US 40 surrounding the parking structure could be condos or also apartments. And then townhomes are what you see in that lighter beige color along the east side. The other important consideration here was to pull the open space along the east side of the property as well, and that creates an open space element and also a transition buffer from the existing neighborhood to the east. One of the things that we wanted to embrace was again the open space, US 40, and the what we're calling Victoria Village Way, north and south, create this development frontage. So creating architectural edges along that, including the St. Louis Creek corridor, instead of turning our backs to it with parking or service, really have that as frontage. We're creating a series of hierarchy of gathering areas along the St. Louis Creek corridor. These will probably be more open space, passive, could be picnic facilities, nature interpretive areas, things like that. And then also, as you get more along the edge of US 40 and even to the southwest corner where we have that commercial building, you see that kind of in the red color. That's 6,000 square foot of commercial that we've programmed into here. That too could have more of an urban, if you will, a little bit more of a town plaza that's a little bit more active and engages with US 40 Main Street. So it's kind of a tale of two projects here. And sort of, we have a real passive, natural areas that are gathering areas and recreation. And then we have a little bit more urban, a little more vitalized, vibrant areas. One of the biggest components to this is obviously you can see we programmed a parking structure in there. That's the gray rectilinear piece that you see on the southwest corner. And there's been discussion about the town of Fraser wanting to have potentially a parking facility. What we've done is master plan this so it can be phased in. We can either build it day one. But what I was telling you earlier about the properties ascending, what works well with that is you can come right off of US 40 into a deck, which can be very cost effective in terms of if you do build a parking structure, in terms of the ramp system, how you ventilate it. It really can work to your advantage having that grade descend down like that. So that's what our plan contemplates as well. And then one of the other considerations of this is that given how we set this up with the segmentation, the framework, it's very feasible. So we're able to phase this in over time. We're able to phase the infrastructure. If the parking garage moves forward day one, we can accommodate it. If it doesn't, this plan still works, still moves forward. So it's a pretty nimble, if you will, or flexible in terms of how it's developed and how we accommodate these different segments, which I think is really important when you're doing a project like this. As we're looking at financing and things like that, we might be able to finance some things now, maybe finance some stuff later. And so having a plan that can adapt to that is really critical. So in terms of the density, we have 176 units. That includes the segments that I just talked about, and then the 6,000 square feet of commercial. So obviously there's a lot more I could cover on this, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So that's just kind of a little bit of an overview of the conceptual plan. With regards to the master plan approach, why we've done this conceptual plan, we envisioned that there'd be a comprehensive master planning approach that we would do in conjunction with the town of Fraser and town of Fraser staff. Something that's always been critically important to us as a planning firm is community outreach. That public interface is something that we've always engaged in. So project initiation and orientation. We would work intensely with stakeholder groups, the town of Fraser, of course, on visioning and programming. Because again, what we showed you tonight is a concept plan. And that to us serves as a basis, but it's open to refinement, open to being critiqued. Then we would create preliminary master plan alternatives based on that programming and that input. And then we would go to a final master plan that would serve as a basis for getting entitlements and approvals. So, and with each phase of this, community outreach, checking in with stakeholder groups is a critical component. And that's something that, again, over the years, we've really tried to embrace. So that's kind of a quick summary of the planning and component. 2 minutes for some questions. Gotcha. How are you all doing? I'm Matt. I'll try to be very quick here since I only have 2 minutes. So I think the important stuff was covered. So, and I'm sure you have questions about the dollars and cents. So that'll probably come up later. This is the budget. You've seen it before. I'm not going to go into detail about it. Happy to do follow-up questions. I just want to emphasize, it's a preliminary budget that's based on our vision. Ultimately, this is a project for Fraser. So the end result is going to be based on Fraser's vision. So the budget will change. So don't get wed to these numbers because your input, the other people out there's input will change it. And, that's appropriate, I think. But anyway, and we assume that probably Fraser, because you own the land, your partner, and we don't have to pay sales and use tax. So maybe that's one important assumption. Financing plan. I'm going to take you now through a shorter version of it, which is the first bit. The entitlements, the design, engineering, et cetera. What we'd like to do, plan A, is to engage in a development service agreement with the town of Fraser. That's lowest cost, lowest risk. It is a services agreement, so no capital needs to be invested. So there's no return on capital. That should make sense pretty much to everybody. That's cost you want to avoid whenever you can. Second option is we put our own capital in, or we use a CDFI loan. So low risk, still a smaller cost or small cost to do that. Our financing approach for the construction phase, I'm just going to go through phase one. Part of phase one is the townhomes. Those are for sale properties. So our financing plan A is to kind of go to Chaffa, get a construction loan. That is a low cost option because Chaffa has the benefit of being a municipal issuer, and that is let's call it a medium risk because we're dealing with a government entity there. On financing plan B, we just do commercial loans. A little bit higher cost, lower risk, easy to deal with. Multifamily, we would like to go for 2 simultaneous or consecutive LIHTC deals in order to be able to deliver you a lot of low cost or affordable for lease units, 111 to be exact, in the first phase. This is an adaptation from what you've seen in our original presentation because you came back with a question and said, hey, can you speed it up and condense the phases? And we said, it's your project. We'd love to do that. So our first, we would prefer to do 2 deals. There's a little bit of risk in doing 2 LIHTC deals back to back. You need to show need, you really need to engage with Chaffa. We've already started conversations with Chaffa, so we're a known quantity there. We've actually started conversations with lenders and tax equity financiers as well. If for some reason we weren't able to do that, we would just drop the 9% deal and do the 4% state and PAB deal, which is about 90 units. So either way, we'd be able to deliver almost the entire original goal of about 105 units as affordable in the first phase. That's the plan. I know I'm probably out of time, so if you give me like 30 more seconds here, sort of risks, mitigants, challenges.
I want to point out, everybody knows about interest rate risk and inflation, et cetera. There are some, in case you're wondering, are you going to ask a question about interest rate risk? No. Yeah? No. Okay. So it's a risk. Interest rates are going up. They may continue to go up. We don't want to lock in long-term bond financing. One of the things I don't know if you've considered is we can do a short-term bond deal, and then we can do a long-term with a bank. We've talked to Barclays Bank about it actually this morning, and then we can do a long-term bond deal. These are all wrapped under CHAFA in the end, but that way we don't lock in, the highest rates in 40 years for 40 years, because that wouldn't be economical or make a whole lot of sense. So just want you to know we're thinking about that. The other key thing I want you to know is in order to get into the LIHTC round in the second half of next year, everybody in this room, I'm assuming many of you work for the town, I know you do, we all have to make like a massive effort, us and you together, because we will need to have the thing totally platted, et cetera, entitled, in order to be able to make a LIHTC application by the end of the year. So like, I think if speed is important to you and delivery of units, and a lot of them sooner, because the need is acute, we all know that about mountain towns, this is a great group who's already doing business every day with the people that need to do business with to get that done quickly. So I think that's key. And then I would say, you asked about a height variance. Density is also going to be important. Density is going to create more optionality for us. If we were to get a height variance, we'd be able to put more units in, that they don't need an extra foundation for the fourth floor. So it's cheaper per unit. That's going to get us better results in financing. It's also going to allow us to do other things like maybe add a little bit more market rate in there, not at the expense of the affordable, but sort of for the benefit of the community. We don't want just an affordable ghetto. It doesn't need to be Lower East Side of Manhattan. It ought to be like a beautiful community with mixed everything in there. Okay, I'm sure I'm done.
That was good. Not a lot of time to do it. Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Matt, before you sit down, is there any restrictions on having multiple LIHTC projects going on in that certain mile range, or in one town versus another town?
This is a wonderful question, which Barrett, you're welcome to jump in. Barrett's our partner at SB Clark. There are, as I understand it, there are challenges rather than restrictions, right? And I think that's kind of a key thing I want to hit on. Public finance is a very rule-based thing that if you're diligent, you engage with the right partners, you're like, I will be in Chaffa's office for something I've made up every week from now until the time that we gain financing, because I want them to know me. I want them to be annoyed by me. I want them to issue us a financing because they want me out of the building. But most of the things that people call a rule are not actually a rule. There are some rules and you need to know them, and they're all written down. You can find them on Chaffa's website. Generally, I did. And Barrett knows them by heart because she's been doing it for 20 years. So if you're talking about Mills or whatever the building is here, we would expect that one to be leased up kind of right about the time that we're going for the 4%. And then you might ask also, what about the 9% you want to do after the 4%, or other way around? SB Clark has done one recently in Boulder County. Barrett, I'll give you the mic in 1 second to talk about that. So it's possible, but you really need to create the story around it and demonstrate the need. And again, engage properly with Chaffa, et cetera. So Barrett.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Barrett Lucero at SB Clark Companies. We've been doing LIHTC financing for 20 years, as Matt alluded to. So I think what he's saying is exactly right. Chaffa will want to see that there is need in the town for it, demonstrated through a market study. And then there is that current building that's being constructed now. Chaffa will want to see that it leases up appropriately and that it what is called stabilizes, meaning that it is fully occupied with qualified tenants before they're going to do another award in Fraser, just because they want to make sure that that need is there and is being spoken to with the projects. So it's more like Matt said, it's not a restriction, but more of a challenge. And then yes, there's nothing saying you can't have a 9% tax credit application in and a foreign state tax credit application in consecutively. The problem would be if you had a foreign state application 1 year and still hadn't closed that one, you were awarded it, you still haven't closed it by the time you want to apply for your next foreign state, because they are different products. So I think that the way that they've phased this, they avoid that problem. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. So
Was that
once
one
I-
of the 5?
No, it
Is
was
that-
not.
Okay.
That was not. So he's actually gonna get in
A
trouble
demerit or
later
something?
on.
I liked your question. Thank you.
So just a reminder, don't be shouting answers out of your seats. You're gonna come up to the mic and answer any of these questions, and whomever needs to answer them, come up and do it. Do you anticipate any ongoing or upcoming projects your firm is working on that may conflict with capacity or resource challenges with Victoria Village?
I'll address that. Thanks. The short answer is no. We've been planning for this project for the last 6 months. And we are holding spots available to be able to do this from a staffing as well as design and construction standpoint. So it's built into our work plan already.
Perfect.
So in other words, it won't conflict with the other projects that we have going.
Would you like a nod from everybody, since everybody brings a different expertise, you know?
Fort Niagara Big Valley Construction, just one short comment on that. As many of you may or may not know, we're in the final phase of a multi-year downtown Winter Park project, and we're finishing up Timber Fox. And so we're in the market looking for another substantial size project similar to Victoria Village to fill the backlog that we've built out in the last 6 or 7 years. And this project would fit that very well.
So how many units is your company built a year? Most they built per year.
I'm going to answer that question indirectly. In 2022, because you know roughly the cost of this project and the duration of this project, we will have billed 62 million in 2022. So our ability to take on a $75 million project over 3 to 4 years is something very doable when we just did 60 million in the last year par now. Number of units, we probably deliver 120 a year. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Is that rough order, Rob? That may vary a little bit from year to year, but that's probably an average over the last 4 years, 5 years.
Okay, any other follow-up questions? No? Okay, how have you or your team facilitated a master planning process before? How would you collaborate with the town through this process?
So I'll defer to Jeff Oval for that one, please.
Yeah, so on the master planning process, I kind of outlined a little bit earlier. I mean, our intent would be, should we be selected, we would meet with staff. I think we would walk through those tasks that I just outlined, those phases, and we would come up with timelines and what we're going to do with each one of those planning phases. But more than that, I think we would also identify the schedule and how that works with the community outreach component of it. So what we would do is, what we've historically done is we've hosted, open houses or met with stakeholders in conjunction with staff, or we set up a separate, task force, if you will, to do that. But at the very beginning of this project, what we would do is, again, take that outline that I shared, and we'd meet with staff and just work together to first of all identify, how are the stakeholder groups and how many open houses should we have and where should we have them and what are the appropriate times. So that's something that we've done extensively, and that would be my recommendation. Is that are we prepared to do it as a team independent from the town? We can, but my recommendation would be is we'd sit down day one with town staff and just make sure it's comprehensive and we address everything. Does that answer your question? Or any other questions about the planning process?
Follow-up questions?
Yeah, follow-up question. I really like how you guys, it's very clear that you looked at what we wanted, and the product mix is probably the best out of any of the proposals that we saw. That being said, 176 units is is low in comparison to some of the other proposals that came up. Do you have ways to increase those numbers or ideas, or what are you open to, I guess, in changing your plan to accommodate more units?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We could definitely do that. I think, we talked about, I think one of the questions was, should the height, restriction be adjusted? Sure, we could do that and totally increase the density. I mean, one of the things that we'll have to be creative with is the parking. And I think that would be something that, what we did is, truthfully, we didn't rely on a lot of structured parking here for us because it's going to make it more viable. If you have a ton of structured parking, more expensive, it's going to be harder to finance this. But if we were able to come up with some kind of partnership with the town of Fraser on the parking structure and come up with some shared parking, lift the maximum height. And I would tell you that would, if we went to like a 55-foot or even a 45-foot, that would help out immensely, and we could really probably significantly increase some of the density. But the framework plan that we're showing here at a conceptual level can accommodate that. The framework's set up for that. It doesn't drastically change our, the principles or the cornerstones we have here.
We can also change the product mix. So for example.
You gotta use the mic so people can hear you.
Sorry. We can also change the product mix as well. So if we needed to eliminate one or two of the townhouse facilities, then we could put a greater number of units there as well in conjunction with more units from a height variance, if we need to go that route. So.
Is there any complications with the previous group mentioned there's complications if you go over 45 feet? Is there any complications in building at 55 feet if we were able to get that variance?
I mean, I'm speaking from the land planning side. No, there really isn't. There's been other projects here in Winter Park that we've up in Winter Park that we've done at 55 feet. And it hasn't really been an issue.
You have to do.
I mean, you have to do elevators.
Yeah.
But we've done, the Timber Fox project that Troy just mentioned. That's at a 55-foot building height, mostly stick built. We do have an elevator. The other consideration I want to bring up about one more time about the density is there's the building height, but also when you have a mixed use project like this, we can do some things creatively with parking. And right now, what we're applying very strictly is town of Fraser's parking requirements. So if we get, a little more creative and like I said, with dormitories and things like that, parking can be less. We've done some of that in Winter Park at one of the affordable housing projects we did up there. We did some shared parking and things that really helped increase the density and minimize the parking a little bit. So that's something we'd work with the town staff on.
Eric Smith from ESA Architects. One thing I might say about the height, the 45-foot requirement is not so much finite. What we have found on all the projects we worked on is that anything affordable, we want to stay in stick framed, because as soon as we get up above 4 stories of stick frame building, we're then into steel or concrete, which increases our construction costs substantially. So when we're working on affordable type projects, we want to stay in the stick frame. We've done a number of these where we've done one story, like a podium of concrete, then we can put 4 stories of stick on top of that. So we can easily get over 45 feet doing that. But the key thing is we want to stay out of steel or concrete from a construction cost standpoint. The big trigger is once you get over 75 feet, we're into high-rise construction, which really wouldn't be applicable here. But the key thing for us is staying in this wood framed construction. It saves us money. It allows more engagement of the local subcontract communities. You start getting into the steel and concrete, it's just more difficult to get that done.
And I think just a final point, well, maybe it's not a final point. The townhomes and stuff that you see on the right side, you guys had, I think, envisioned, at least at some point, somebody could progress through this community. Like you could start in the dormitories and be a lifty, and then, eventually you own a restaurant or something and you get to buy a townhome. That doesn't have to be the case, right? That we sort of like responded to that, right? If the need now is to get people homes, that's the point I think of the engagement process.
Thank you. Any others from the board? Okay, next is, can you discuss previous capital stacks you've used for affordable housing projects to meet AMI goals, and how effective were they?
Barrett?
Hi. So capital stacks for affordable LIHTC projects. So I will speak particularly towards LIHTC. You have your equity that comes in after you have the allocation of tax credits, and then you have a lender. And then you already are working with the Division of Housing, the Colorado Division of Housing, CDOH is how I refer to them. There is funding available through CDOH right now. I think in rural communities, I'm not sure, they haven't released their full funding right now, but it's somewhere around the $35,000 to $40,000 per unit that is available for soft funding in that stack, the financing stack. And then there's a possibility, there are some transformational grants that are coming out of the Division of Housing as well. Those might be available for affordable for sale homes. But those are the kinds of sources that you're looking at for the LIHTC financing.
Barrett, can you talk about the Boulder County one where you did a 9 and a 4?
Sure. So recently we've worked with Boulder County Housing Authority. They are the city of Lafayette. Had a site that was unused, and they asked the housing authority to develop the site, and so it's turned into a multi-phase, fully affordable development. And how Boulder County Housing Authority started is they've worked on it for years with the city and with other stakeholders. But what they ended up doing is using a cornerstone building, which was a 9%, a senior building with 63 units. We went in for the application on that in February of this year. They were awarded. We turned around and put in a foreign state application, a second competitive application in August of this year, and they were recently just awarded that as well for a 123 unit multifamily. There are 2 multifamily buildings and some flats, they're calling them, where they're basically like 9 plexes. So I think what Matt's trying to get at is that there is this opportunity, if you're working well with Chaffaa, you're working well with the town of Fraser, you've got good community engagement and you're aware of the goals of the community members, you can put in a phased project in that manner. So go for 9% tax credits in one round, foreign state tax credits in the next round. Does that speak enough to what you're looking for, Matt?
It was good for me, but I'm
Okay.
not judging actually.
Anybody else?
I mean, I would say the plan here is to maximize our 4 state and PAB allocations, and then to pepper in the 9% if we can, if we tell the story well enough. And then I think that, as you well know, there was this thing passed called Prop 123, which allocated about $300 million in a number of, as government bills do, very broadly defined 6 or so categories that we're going to be like, maybe to use a hunting term, a bird dog about trying to find where we can utilize that capital to fill gaps here. So, if buildings get bigger, or if we really want to get that extra 20 or so units in, and we don't get a 9%, we're going to be finding gap funding there. And then I will say one more thing about affordable. So my affordable experience is overseas. A couple other partners and I managed to put together a portfolio of about 700-800 units of affordable housing in Ireland, different structure, but we were able to do it and finance it very effectively, like 95% debt financing, because we structured a lease with the government, long-term 25-year lease, and we were able to kind of move that out of the real estate realm and into the infrastructure realm, where just their view on the value of the underlying asset was much greater. So we were able to finance a balloon payment 25 years out. So I'm not saying that that's something that we'll be able to do here. I think the benefit you get from this team is you have an extraordinarily strong public financing arm, and then you have an extraordinarily creative and aggressive private and other financing arm.
Thank you. Any other follow-up questions? Okay. So we recognize there are many current challenges with the labor market, supply challenges, and material prices. Can you describe your firm's capacity to navigate these challenges to deliver a project on time and on budget?
So I'll start with that. Number one is we have local resources in our local team, whether we're talking about design or whether we're talking about construction or procurement, we draw upon the local market first. We have those relationships here. And because we have other projects going on, it allows us to prioritize resources that others may not be able to do. So if we need to staff up or crew up at any given point in time to be able to maintain schedule, then we can do that. Sometimes we do source labor and materials from the Front Range. We find that that's also very cost effective because it allows us to maintain schedule instead of incurring delay costs. So that is one of the things that I think we bring is that the local presence and having those long-term working relationships with the local trades.
Anybody else?
So Todd hit pretty well on the local labor force. As you all know, there's not an abundance of it up here, and because of our 22 plus years in the community, Big Valley Construction has a lot of local and a lot of relationships from the Front Range when the locals aren't available. So I think that's important. The other thing that's real important though, in the world we live in today is material procurement. As some of you may or may not know, the challenges involved with that. So the way that you're doing the project approach, when we work with ESA again and again and again, and Eric and the design team is designing the structures, we talk about material procurements. Sometimes we can't get a BCI, so we have to go to a TGI. Sometimes we can't. I don't want to get into the weeds, but during the design phase, when Eric comes to us and says, we're going to design this floor assembly, we're going to design this exterior wall assembly, this building envelope, we do have to change materials that still meet codes, meet our values, meet energies, but we have to do it in a fashion that we can go select the materials that are available in a timely fashion. And so that integrated design build piece that we have done again and again with ESA on several projects over the years helps that material procurement not delay the schedule of the project. That's very important.
Thank you. Follow-up questions? No? Last question is, why should the town of Fraser partner with you on this project?
Perfect. That's a little bit more animated than I am. So for several reasons, really. One is the experience and expertise that our team brings. The Mountain Affordable Housing Development team is drawing upon industry leaders, each in our respective fields. We have the depth of experience so that we're able to anticipate and use our foresight to overcome potential obstacles. Number one. Number two is we do have a local presence where we're able to mobilize the resources here when we need them and augment as we need to from out of markets such as the Front Range. Number three is the bench strength. Each of our firms has sufficient resources to execute on this, and we're confident in our ability to do so. We can draw upon other resources that are not here that we also have under contract for a labor pool if we need different engineering disciplines or we need different advisory and consultative resources as well. We also have, I think, a very robust project control system that we use, whether it's risk management on the front end, where we identify risks at every stage of the way, we log them, we establish a very proactive risk management plan, and we manage that. We don't accept all risks. You know, some of them we avoid, some of them we insure around or bond over, and others we make sure that we address through management practices and or contingency if they have monetary aspects tied to them. We have a hierarchical scheduling system from milestones down to master summary schedules that we use for reporting and communication with stakeholders in the community. And then we also have detailed CPM schedules, which are management schedules that we use in the field. We also have a very detailed, very current and very accurate cost database from our experience in developing and building here in Winter Park, in Grant County and Fraser. We know what it takes to get the job done and how much it costs to do that. So our estimates are accurate from the beginning, which helps us make informed and reasonable budgets, which also then enables capital planning and then the raising of capital that we need. And then on the back end, we are very particular about how we trend costs so that we're able to have an early detection, early warning system. If we see costs may go up in one category, it gives us the ability to reallocate in another so that we don't exceed budget overall. So those are several reasons. I think that the last is that we have a real penchant for partnering and working together as a team and working with the town is something that we look forward to, we get excited about, and I think that we're very good at partnering with the local municipalities.
Thank you.
I could just add one or two more. I think everything Todd said is probably the key, but a couple of little things is when you have a well-established local team on this type of a project, you can't forget about warranties. And so when we're here and we're 15 minutes away on warranties are gonna happen. We're not robots, we're not perfect, we're human beings. And so there's gonna be some warranty challenges on a project of this size. And we're right here, we're at your beck and call for warranties for the warranty period. That's something very important. The second thing, and I don't want to get all personal on it, but this is our community. And we have an incredible challenge right now finding employee housing for the hundreds of people that work on all of our job sites. What a legacy to be able to put 100 to 200 units to help that problem in our community. That would be something that this team would be very, very proud of and would be here for the next many, many years to come. We're not out of here in 2 or 3 or 5 years when this job's done. We're here for the long haul. We've been here forever. We're here for a lot longer. And to help that problem that this community has today for this team would be a pretty amazing feeling for this team. Thank you. Don't forget about the warranty though. That's important.
We know where to find you.
I would just.
You know where to find my partner.
Yeah.
Out
For
there
Rob.
with the cows.
You get the folks that are in the room and on the phone too. I mean, there's not another person signing up. Were we to be awarded, it'll be this group that shows up to do the planning, right? We're relatively small businesses that are capable of doing this business. I don't want to use the word small as a bad word. And so you're going to get who you sign up for, right? There's no really bait and switch here.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah. And yours as well.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in. And we have a big decision ahead of us. So yeah, you guys will know just as soon as we do.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
All right,
We're
thank you,
privileged and honored to be here and appreciate having the opportunity. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Hey.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this rolling because we still have
Right.
more to do tonight.
Yep.
So
Okay. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your
Nice to
time.
meet you.
Good luck.
Katie Solis. I'm Dennis's wife, Katie. It's highly of you.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Hi.
Hi,
Glenn.
Dennis.
Yeah. Very highly of you guys.
Next, Mom. I'm next, Mom.
Yeah. Thank you.
no, we're gonna be here a lot later. All right.
I am.
Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
You too as
You're
well.
welcome.
Bye, Jeff. Nice to see you. I miss you.
Wonderful to meet you.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, are there any updates? Anybody have any updates?
I'd like to give the round of closet, help pick these four. There you go. The team that picked them. Good job. Thanks for volunteering. No, I was not on it. I didn't have the time.
Okay, no no updates. Okay, now I need a motion. I don't have a cheat sheet, so we're gonna have.
Where'd my,
Oh, there we go.
I move we enter into an executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and or instructing negotiators under CRS section 24-6-402 4E regarding Victoria Village developer interviews, including town manager Ed Cannon and assistant town manager Michael Brock.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? This, we could even, we could either keep this really quick, or we could. No, we're not making a decision tonight.
No decisions.
Seems like I'm not quite ready to. Be nice to have it summarized. We have time to think about it.
This is all stuff we
That's
can
what-
discuss.
Wait till we
This-
come to executive session.
Mhm.
We asked for further comment.
I know, and I'm answering your question.
Okay.
If you don't want the answer, don't ask. All in favor?
I,
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's.
I answered the question. You asked a question, I answered. Okay. See you later, Antonella.
Oh. But you'll find out.
We will not be coming back. to this, correct?
What's that?
Oh.
Oh, yeah, we're not coming back, so Amy Vance is the only one left out there. We're not coming back, so.
But it does.
Okay,
Thanks for
thanks for listening, Amy.
listening.
Don't make that decision after 9.
And,
We're not making any decisions.
okay, let me stop you.